All right, it's 6 o'clock. We'll get started. So, welcome to the Washington City Council meeting of June 8th, 2022. We're here at the Washington City Hall Council Chambers. This meeting is also being broadcast live via YouTube, linked at washingtoncity.org/meetings. Is the Reverend Rakeen Keston of Solomon's Porch Foursquare Fellowship here? We actually have a rotation with the Interfaith Council for the prayers at the beginning of our council meeting. I'm not seeing Reverend Keston, so I will ask Councilman Ivy if he wouldn't mind offering the invocation.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful for the opportunity that we have this evening to meet as citizens of the United States and residents of Washington City. Father, we wish to give thee thanks for the circumstances that bring us together this evening to be able to live with freedoms and personal choice that are so valuable to us. Father, we thank thee for all of our many blessings and ask for thy guiding spirit to help be with us here this evening as we discuss important matters of the city and of our residents, that we'll make those choices that would be the best for all involved and aligned with your will. Father, we thank you for all that we have, and we love you. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Councilman. This is a great group here in the council chambers tonight. It's fun to see so many citizens here, even if it's only for the first part of the meeting. So we're excited to have a group with us called Children of the American Revolution. And before I invite them to come forward and tell us a little bit more about their organization and share anything they'd like to share, and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, I would just like to share a little bit of a background about this organization. So bear with me while I just read a few sentences here. So the Jemima Johnson Society, CAR, Children of the American Revolution, is our society for the National Society of Children of the American Revolution, represented in Southern Utah. The society was reorganized May 22nd, 2021, holding their very first meeting and swearing in senior leaders and their junior officers to their positions. The society has been actively serving in the community ever since. Southern Utah's CAR or CIR kids have been present at many community events, as well as holding their own meetings to organize and give opportunities to the youth who are or want to be involved. Historically, the National Society of Children of the American Revolution was founded in 1895, making it the oldest youth organization in our country today. It's pretty impressive. This organization has been giving opportunities to youth on local, state, and national levels. The main objective of the NSCAR are to train good citizens, develop leaders, and promote love of the United States of America and its heritage among young people. So it's my honor to invite those who are part of this organization to come forward and share what they'd like to share, and then lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting us to be here today. I have on my sides here our junior president, Liam Thomason, and this is our junior vice president, Tucker Garcio. So our children have a senior who is above them to mentor them, and they all hold their own positions as well. So we just wanted to take this time to just say a couple of things about us to you today. So NSCAR is a really wonderful opportunity for youth. It has something for everyone, little kids, big kids, adults too. It offers state, regional, and national gatherings to meet new people from coast to coast, many of whom become lifelong friends. Teaches effective meeting conduct and parliamentary procedure, such as this. Offers fun family educational experiences. It offers opportunities to learn about American history while creating it. It builds confidence in meeting new people, public speaking, leadership etiquette, and much more. Trains good citizens by participation on the local, state, regional, and national levels. And also it builds a resume of activities and responsibilities that they can put on their college applications, all those kinds of things. But one of the most important aspects of this organization is that it is a lineage group. What that means is those children who join trace back their lineage to a man or woman who aided or fought for American independence. Now, why? It is my personal belief that this is because it makes the blessing and inheritance of this great nation personal to them. And that has power to it. Power for them to go on and do their part to uphold this nation's values, the same ones that their predecessors sacrificed their lives and fortunes for. Children are the future. If we know that, then the opposition obviously knows that as well. If we don't teach them the right way, someone else will step in and teach them another. This is where my passion and the passion of many who work alongside me comes from. This organization is historically meant to be apolitical. Many of these values that were never considered to be political have now been politicized, such as honoring the flag and upholding the Constitution and so on. This is a problem, but this is also an opportunity for us and our youth to uphold our values with boldness and with love through our examples. So we do that through the way we serve our communities, through the way we learn from, support, and work with our local veterans, through the way we educate ourselves and others about the American Constitution and other important parts of our foundational history. So with that in mind, we're here today to be those examples, and we're thankful for this invitation. And our call to action for any here today, including, of course, yourselves, is that please support us in any way you can. Consider sharing this message with those you know and inviting them to join us. And consider getting involved yourselves. We intend to stay, and we will continue to serve this community and shape these young minds to be future leaders of this community and all other possibilities. So, thank you.
Kenzie, we love your organization. We love what you're doing. It's Kenzie Thomason, right?
That's me, yes.
Perfect. Would you mind, before your group leads us in the pledge, could we just have each of these members of Children of the American Revolution just introduce themselves and have their name, if they could just say their name in the mic, and then we'll be happy to, it'll mean so much as we stand with you and pledge allegiance to the flag. But yes, if you wouldn't mind.
I'm sure they'd love to. Come on, I'll put it lower for you guys. Come say your names. You start, Liam. Said your name, but.
He's like, I can't reach.
Yeah, just say your name.
My name is Liam Thomason.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Tucker Gercio.
My name is Molly Christiansen.
My name is Maggie Christiansen. My name is Jonathan Miller.
My name is Rain Miller.
My name is Rebecca Christiansen. And I'm Grace Ann Christiansen.
Wonderful. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll have you invite us to stand and join you in the Pledge of Allegiance. After that, can we get a picture with you together? We'd like to remember this, and we're hopeful too that as we have our Independence Day celebration and our Veterans celebration, we would love to have you join us. Okay, go ahead and lead us in the pledge.
Okay. Someone want to say please stand? Please begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then council, let's just go get a picture with this group.
Take a picture, okay? So, shorter people in the front, taller people in the front. You have to lean over a little bit. That's cool too. Okay. I'll give it to you. You ready? Okay, cheers. Thank you. Awesome. Okay. Thank you again for the invitation. It was a joy to be here and meet all of you. Thanks, Kim.
All right. So we'll move on to item 1, which is approval of the agenda. So for any in the audience, when we get to item 8B, I will ask for a motion to table it until our regular meeting on July 13th, and I will add that item to a work session on June 22nd, and that is per my request. And then when we get to item 8E, I will ask for a motion to table it until June 22nd per the presenter's request. Also, we have no need for a closed session tonight, so whoever makes the motion to approve the agenda, please strike item 12, and I will call for that motion.
Mayor, I'll make that motion that we approve the agenda for Wednesday, June 8th, as outlined by the mayor.
I have a motion by Councilman Coates. Second by Councilmember Martinson. All in favor?
Aye.
The agenda is approved. We'll go on to announcements. Item number 2, announcements. So the city offices will be closed Monday, June 20th in observance of the federal holiday on June 19th. On June 21st at 9 a.m., we will have the official ribbon cutting of the new section of road at the landmark Red Cliffs Temple that connects Washington City and St. George at our 3650 South and their 1450 South. We will also be announcing the new name for that section of road as it goes east to the Parkway and west to Confluence Crosby Park in St. George. Although I think some of you may have already heard what that name is, but we'll still build a little bit of suspense. On to any other announcements, council, that I may have missed? Great. We'll move on to item 3. Are there any declarations of abstentions and or conflicts to declare? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, which is great. Great to see all of those here for this event, for this item tonight. So this is item 4A, is the introduction and oath of office for the incoming Washington City Youth Council members. But before I invite them up, I do want to just point out that the mayor, myself, and the council, we were able to attend the graduation for those who finished out their term on the youth council. And one of the things that I just want to bring attention to is the amount of service and the value that this group brings to our city. You know, every significant event that we have, from Cotton Days to Independence Day to Veterans Day and everything in between, the Youth Council is representing us so well. So we're really appreciative of that. And one thing that I thought was interesting is collectively that group served 3,828 hours. So at $12 an hour, that is the equivalent of $45,936 to the city. So when I say value, it's valuable to you with the experiences you get, but it's also valuable to the city in terms of what you provide and what you offer to the rest of us. So we're really grateful for that. We think that you incoming members are going to do a wonderful job. So at this time, momentarily, I will invite the Youth Council Advisor, Carmen Snow, to come forward, and she will introduce each of the new incoming council members by name. After that, our City Recorder, Tara Pence, will administer the oath of office, and then we will come as a mayor and council and shake your hands, welcome you, and get a group picture. Carmen Snow.
Perfect. We thought we were old. We've been here, this is our 12th year, but this little group that just came up, I were 19, what was that again? 60, what was it? What was the year that they?
Oh, 1895.
1895.
They've gone us by a few.
Well, we thought 12 years was pretty good. But we are excited about our new year. And our theme last year was footprints and our legacy. And this year our theme is going to be preserve history and cultivate the future through leadership. And we were excited that we could present to the City Council at our graduation the Melinda statue that is now up in the Covington home, and it looks beautiful up there. She looks gorgeous. She's very happy to be there. Anyway, but we have got 9 new members this year, so that will give us 23 that will be sitting on the Youth Council. And we're so excited that we've got a Councilman Martinson working with us. He's such a great young man. He is. And it's going to be really fun because our mayor of last year is going to stay on as a student advisor, so a youth advisor. So that will be very helpful to me. And she did such an amazing job last year. That was Chrislyn Wilson. Chrislyn, can you stand? Are you in the back? Oh, there she
Hey,
is.
I was looking for you.
There she is.
Mayor Wilson. I knew you were over there. Okay,
Yeah.
welcome.
She is awesome. And just to announce that already I've worked with some of these youth that are just coming on. They helped with the Cotton Days, and they were amazing. I was so proud of them. And we've already lined up that we'll be helping the Lions Club on the 4th of July. Just so that you know, it's the 4th of July on Monday. So everybody's aware of that. And they'll have the booths open at 9:30, ready to go. Okay, so here we go. First off, I've got an alphabetical order. And when I read your name, will you come up? And then your parents, will you stand up in the back as I read your youth's name? First off, we have Katie Allen. Come up here and stand, Katie. And her mom and dad are Melissa and Justin Allen. Then we have Melly Belknap. I'm sorry. And her beautiful mother is Susan Belknap, and her dad is Nick. Oh, Nick, hi. He made it. Then we have Ashton Carrick, and her parents are Krista Lee and Dan Carrick. We're just so excited. These parents already, it's just fun having these awesome parents support them. And then we have Jade Janice Chalice, and her mother is Janice Chalice, and her father is Sean Chalice. They're back there. And we also have Rachel Rose West, and her mom and dad are Lisa and Jerry West. She got up here already. And then we have Autumn Wheatley, and her mom and dad are Angela Wheatley and Thomas Wheatley. We also have 3 others, but there's youth count now. There's everything's going on. You know how it is. We've got Dason McDonald, and his mom and dad are Brittany and Devin McDonald. And we also have Megan Kurt, and her mother is Nancy Kurt. And then Brooklyn Boone, and Julia Boone's her mother. But so far you can see they've got great support behind them, their parents. We came an hour early, which worked out really good. So we went up to Covington Home and did our meet and greet. And we've got that all behind us, and we're looking forward to it. So I present to you our new council this year, the new ones coming on board. And I've got a list for you, Mayor, that we'll give to you. So you've got all their names and contact information. So I'll turn it to you.
Down this way and just face me. Are you ready? Just a little bit, then they can maybe get your picture.
So give yourselves a little room to bring your arm to the square.
Right. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, please state your name. I, Katie Allen, do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Utah. I do also solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the laws and ordinances of Washington City, and I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Congratulations.
I want you to know it's not an all-girls club. We've got boys that are going on from last year.
I don't know, your dad. So much Carmen.
Slide in tight.
Are we balanced, Jordan? Are we good? Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. We're good. Okay. And here's a copy of our calendar and everything. just need to tell you how much we appreciate the city that supports this. Thank you so much. If you'll excuse us now, we'll go on.
Are you sure you don't want to stay, Carmen, for this meeting and get the real feeling of a council meeting?
And thank you, parents, as well. What amazing support. This is a great opportunity for everyone. All right. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, which is the consent agenda. And typically, items on the consent agenda are not discussed in depth. And if any of them need to be discussed in depth, they're pulled from that consent agenda and discussed separately. So item 5A is the board audit report. 5AI is consideration to approve the board audit report from May 2022. Item 5B, minutes. 5BI is consideration to approve the minutes from City Council meeting of 5/25/2022. 5C, final plat. 5CI is consideration to approve a final plat for Solace at Coral Canyon Phase 1, subdivision located at approximately Highland Parkway and Horizon Parkway. Item 5CII is consideration to approve a final plat for the Indian Rivers subdivision located at approximately 400 East Indian Springs Drive. Are there any comments or brief questions to be made before I call for an approval of the consent agenda?
Yeah, so Mayor, I just have one item on item 5CII on the Indian Rivers. Just for clarification, staff's going to work with the applicant on clarifying some of the easements. Our attorney is on some of the existing easements that are already on the property.
Wonderful. And Recorder, if you'll make sure that is in the minutes, I will call for a motion of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda for tonight's meeting.
Have a motion by Councilmember Martinson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Coates. All in favor?
Aye.
The consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to item 6. Item 6A is consideration to confirm the appointment of members of the Planning Commission for a 3-year term. This is done by advice of the mayor and consent of the council. I see Planning Commissioner Corey Anderson here in attendance. We are very grateful for your service. My recommendation is that we reappoint Commissioner Anderson to serve for 3 additional years. Is there any additional comments or discussion on that? If not, I'm happy to call for a motion.
Mayor, I just want to say I really appreciate Corey on there. He's been a great asset to us, and his knowledge is phenomenal. So I appreciate your work, Corey. And I'm glad you accepted 3 more years.
I second that.
I third that.
That's my motion, Mayor.
Okay. Tara, does that work as a motion? I think we have a motion by Councilman Coates and a second by Councilmember Casperson.
And a third by Councilman
And a third by Henderson. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Commissioner Anderson, thank you. We appreciate your service. You're welcome to stay if you'd like, but chances are you've already seen most of these items. All right, we'll move along to item 6B, which is consideration to confirm the appointment of members of the Power Board for a 3-year term. There were 2 of those positions that expire at the end of June. Again, this is done by advice and consent. So the names that I would like to bring forward is that we reappoint Todd Spriggs to serve for an additional 3 years, and that we appoint Dick Saunders to join the Power Board. I'd be happy to have any conversation on that and or a motion.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
since I'm the Power Board liaison for the city. I'll make a motion that we appoint those Dick Saunders and Todd Spriggs, reappoint to the Power Board.
Thank you, council member, and we appreciate your service there with the Power Board. Have a motion by Councilmember Coates.
I second that, Mayor.
We have a second by Councilmember Henderson. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have two new terms for Power Board members beginning July 1. Those meetings are held the first Tuesdays of the month at 5 p.m. here in the council chambers. Those are also broadcast live. Rick, as I understand, our power director, Rick Hansen, appreciate all of his service that he does. And this is a great board that's a recommending body that tackles a lot of important issues and does a lot of work behind the scenes. So just before we move on to the next item, I just would like to express our sincere appreciation to outgoing Power Board member Randy Meyer for his selfless and dedicated service on this board. I had a chance to meet with Randy and had a good conversation prior to this meeting. And I would like to welcome back Todd Spriggs and recognize his continued and valuable contribution. And I'm confident that the council joins me in welcoming a familiar and friendly face in Dick Saunders, who lives here in Washington City in Coral Canyon. He has a career's worth of background in the power industry, and he'll be a great and valuable asset going forward in serving on that board. So welcome, Dick. Would you just raise your hand so anyone appreciate you being here and look forward to your service there. Okay, any other comments before we move on to item 7? Okay, item 7 is a lease agreement. Item 7A is continuation of consideration to renew a lease agreement for Southern Utah Swim Association, SUSA, located in the Washington City Community Center. I see Assistant Leisure Services Director Benjamin Ray here. I also see a representative from SUSA here. Council, would you like either or both of them to come forward to answer any questions you may have, or I'm happy to invite them forward, or would you like to have conversation before we bring them up?
We can hear from Ben.
Ben, if you'll come forward, and then Adam, if you'll be on standby, please.
All right, thanks for having me back. This is back in your packet for consideration. I've had the opportunity to meet with several of you and discuss some of your concerns and things that we can do to best serve our citizens in the community. And I appreciate that opportunity that I've had with that. I know in speaking with Adam that the team is willing to consider differences in the length of term. I know that was one issue that the council had brought up in not being quite comfortable with the three-year renewable term. I would, from a staff recommendation, I would like to keep it at least at a 2-year term, but certainly if the council is not comfortable with that, we would let you make that determination. In speaking with the team, we felt like that was a good compromise, but I'm willing to answer any other questions or anything else you might have for me.
I'll make a quick comment before council here. It's been interesting. As policymakers, you try to balance the competing needs in the community, and certainly we have this beautiful community center, and there's limited time and limited space. SUSA is an organization that provides a lot of opportunity for youth to be active and healthy and swim and compete. At the same time, we have this facility to benefit our residents and visitors and those who live here locally and want to recreate. So I'm hopeful that the council can find a way to strike a balance with those competing needs, and I'm sure that Mr. Ray will help facilitate that.
So when we talked this week about it, and can you just kind of go over some of the bullet points that for the rest of the council that we talked about? I mean, we talked about the amount of kids. We've talked about the revenue that's brought in that helps supplement some of that. We've talked about some of the other ones. Sorry.
Yeah, I can. I'll just hit on a few of those points just to put us all on the same page. On average, so with the contract with SUSA over the last several years, the amount of money that we bring in from that roughly offsets about half of the lifeguarding costs for the lap pool for the year, if you were to kind of take that portion out. So the time that they use really does offset a lot of that. one of the great benefits that we as a city derive from this is a large number of our lifeguards and swim instructors come from that pool of swimmers who come through the SUSA program, as well as the great benefit it provides to our local high schools. I would venture to say that the vast majority of all of our high school swimmers and state champions over the last several years have come through that program and fed into our high school. So I think there's a lot of additional benefits outside of just maybe the financial side of thing that it provides to our community. Additionally, I went through the numbers, and a couple of the concerns that had come up before is the amount of time of using all of the lanes for swim meets. Some of the council members had concerns. We have about 5,000 hours a year of lap lane usage if you count the pool. Swim meet time, where we close down for swim meets for SUSA, accounts for about 0.5% of our lap lane schedule for the year. In addition to that, we keep numbers of swimmer counts, and there had been a question about that. And they, on average, have about 18 athletes per hour utilizing the space that they're in, as opposed to during that same time, we usually have about 2.5 lap swimmers during that time. And that's kind of how we determine the allocation of space. And again, they've been great partners to work with on a lot of things, and have been willing to accommodate and work with schedules as needed over the years. So that's kind of where we come to the consideration we've got before you.
Further questions for staff?
I don't want to be a pest, but it sounds like it's just all positives. If you had to, are there any negatives to the agreement?
Negatives to the agreement. I mean, I think that everybody's well understood that we are just a growing and busy community. And so whenever we make any decisions, we know that we have a limited resource, so we try and balance that the best. I'm not sure if that's really a negative. We still provide about 6 times as much lap swim time as we do for team space in the pool. But certainly we can't accommodate every need at every time that somebody might want for use of our space.
Do you see some future point at which the use of the facility by residents makes it impossible to continue an agreement like this, or do you not see that as a potential issue?
I think that is a discussion that needs to continue over the years. I think as our community continues to grow, we will have to continually have discussions about what the best use of space is for our facility. So I think that by necessity, we should be regularly having these discussions to make sure we're balancing those needs the best.
Thank you.
So did you say your recommendation was to keep it at the 3 years with a 3-year extension?
I mean, from my perspective, I am comfortable with that, but I can understand if the council is not comfortable with that. In talking with the applicant, they would be willing to lower that number down. I mean, Adam can speak for himself if you would like, but we had talked about having at least a 2-year contract. We felt like was a good compromise if the council sees that as something they'd like to do.
And then Councilman Ivey brought this up last time. There's just some inconsistencies in the verbiage. So 4A says 22,000, is spelled out 22,000, and then the alpha, the numeric part, is 26,000.
Yeah, and I can get Adam to maybe say whether I'm wrong on this, but it should say 26,000, and we will correct that in the final contract
And then same
to
thing
say
on
that.
4AII. There's some discrepancies there that it says 24,200, and then the numeric says 27,500.
Yeah. So I mistyped there. It would be
No worries.
26,000, and then increasing to 27,500 in the next term, according to that.
So I did have a chance to have a conversation with Ben and with Barry to address some of my concerns. And I think would be fair to say that my concerns were based on just the ability for membership holders, citizens, residents, being able to come in and not being able to do what they came there for. That is something that that I've tried very hard during my years on city council to address. Now, I will say right up front that without this contract, I feel like that our community center, the swim part, would be underutilized. And so I am in favor of this, but I do think that just some clarification that I would like to have, and we had talked a little bit about it, as the contract, regarding the contract, I do understand 3 years is a long time, and to have any automatic requalifier, I wouldn't be in favor of that, but a 3-year might be too long. A 1 year, if you look at it from the business side, that's probably not long enough because you can't really plan. And we understand that. And, you know, I too appreciate the relationship that the city of Washington has had with the swim team. And so in consideration of that, I would be very willing, just for myself, to consider a 2-year contract. But the one element of the contract that I wanted to discuss was in 3B, where it says under swimming competition meets, SUSA shall schedule a minimum of 3 swim club competitions or meets during the term of the lease, and may, but is not required, schedule other swim meets during the term. Each scheduled swim meet entitles SUSA to the exclusive use of the entire lap pool. Now, I would feel better about having an idea of what that is, because that provision says that they can have 3. They don't have to, but they can have 3 and possibly more. Now, personally, I think it's great to get kids swimming, get them active, but my concern in that comes in is how are we going to adequately notice those additional swim meets? And I'll let you address that, you know, with time delays and then just to speed things up, we had a discussion regarding the lane identification. If you would like to share that, then that might make this a little faster.
Sure. So as far as swim meets go, SUSA usually gives us a list of all of their meets for the calendar year prior to. So I already actually have a list of all of their proposed dates for this next coming year. So I know those. I post those to our website at 2 months in advance. So they're available out to the public on our upcoming changes to our schedule 2 months in advance. We also put it on our Facebook page for the community center. We also post it at least 7 different locations in the community center 2 weeks prior to closures. And we currently have a whiteboard that we use right at the entrance to the pool to designate upcoming closures. Particularly, we want to catch those that are regular users. We're starting to get better with technology, so we're going to have a television at some point that will have those listed rather than rewriting them out. So that is how we notify of any upcoming closures when we have events coming up.
Is there anything else that you think that we could do to notify visitors?
Can we put it in the newsletter? Do we have room in our newsletter to post something like that?
I want to say that at times we have had notices of that in the newsletter. I'm not sure. I can't say for sure that it's always been 100% consistent, but we could probably put it in our email newsletter that goes out to the community center members.
Do we have a Facebook presence, like on?
Yeah, we have a Facebook page, and we post it to our Washington City Community Center Facebook page. We have over 6,000 members of that page that it goes out to. And we have about 7,000 members that our email blast goes out to on a monthly basis. So we could include that. I believe that I have, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I've been 100% getting that on our newsletter to go out.
Have we ever considered collecting those that would like to be on an email blast where we could send out more current notifications of those closures as they get closer so that people would know that? Is that something we've ever thought about or talked about?
We have actually attempted that at times. We found it challenging to keep track of the list as people come and go and adding new people onto the list and keeping it current. But with our current email blast of members, we update it quarterly through our system. So it'll go through our system and find all those who have been willing to opt into announcements, and we can add them into the list. So we do that about quarterly and update that list. And as far as the other part of your question, remind me the other part of your question was the designation of the lanes. So what we do for designation of lanes right now is anytime that we have lane usage or something that is scheduled lane usage, we cone off those lanes 15 minutes prior to the usage. We notify people that there's an upcoming usage of that space. We try and help them if they need to find additional space that's available. One of the things that we've budgeted for into this next year is to move that to the next level so that we'd identify what each lane is being used for, whether it's lap swimming or swim lessons or water aerobics or swim team or whatever the case may be, just to help better let people know. So when they walk in, it's very apparent to them. We do the best we can with the lifeguards to try and notify people and to communicate with them what that looks like. But certainly the more information we can give them, the better.
I guess the last thing that I would say is that my concerns have been addressed. You know, it's just, I feel a stewardship to make sure that when we have city facilities that they're to be used for the folks that live here. And I feel like that with my confidence I have in you and Barry and in your staff, that you can find ways to even improve on this throughout this next year so that we can notify and in most cases just have things open so they can be used.
Further thoughts? It sounds like we may be moving towards a motion.
I'd just like to say I am in favor of anything that helps kids to be active, and I really think that this is a great use for our city facilities. I think at this point, though, with our population growing so much, I think it might be wise to do a 2-year contract, like has been mentioned by some of the council members. You know, just so that we can monitor it, you know, a little bit more regularly. I think that would be maybe a good compromise. So, like Councilman Ivy said, you know, a year-to-year contract is too short, but maybe 3 years, you know, we might want to look at it every 2 years just so that we can make sure that we're, you know, as we grow, that we're still, you know, meeting the needs of everyone. So I'd be in favor of that.
So my thought was a 2-year with a 1-year extension. If there is a concern that comes up in those 2 years, we can bring it back and look at it. But if not, we do that 3rd year and then it will come back on the 3rd year. So
I think it might be just as a note that there is provisions in the contract as well, that if the city were to find a situation that was untenable, then we could get out of it within a time period. And we don't foresee that happening. Again, I want to reiterate our appreciation for Sousa and their swimmers and the legacy that they have in creating state champion swimmers. And that's an important part of our community. So I appreciate that.
All right, council, sounds like we're ready for a motion. Who would like to take a stab at that?
Mayor, I'll make a motion. So this is a lease agreement, so we just get a motion to renew.
Let's see here. This is going to be a motion to renew a lease agreement, correct?
Okay. All right, Mayor. I'll make a motion to renew a lease agreement for Southern Utah Swim Association located Washington City Community Center with one adjustment to the contract, that it would be a 2-year contract and a 1 year with one renewal.
And Councilman, can I just have you clarify that the first 2 years are $26,000 and the second year is,
I've got that.
And the extension $27,500, or is that just clerical that you can make that adjustment, Ben?
I can make that in the motion, Mayor. For the first 3-year term, that would be 26. Yeah, for the first term would be 26,000. It would be $25,999.92. The second term would be 27,500 or 27,499.92.
All right, we have a motion on the table. I'm looking at the Sousa rep for just a nod that if that's legally binding, Mr. Caldwell. Is that okay? All right, we have a motion. And would anyone like to give a second on that?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Councilmember Casperson.
I just want to need clarification for the staff. 2 years with a 1 year extension. Correct, Councilman Ivy?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what I want.
All right. We have clarity on a motion and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The lease agreement is renewed. Keep up the good work, Sousa. We appreciate the partnership we've had in the past, and it continues to go forward well. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 8, which is public hearings. So we do receive electronic public comment on any of the 5 items for public hearing tonight. We received no electronic public comment. So as I preface these public hearings, I'll just reiterate that a public hearing is an opportunity for the council to listen to and consider public feedback. After I open the public hearing, any wishing to speak to a specific item, please remember to state your name for the record. And please keep your comments on topic, not repetitive to something that has already been said, and concise. Most well-spoken public comments can be made within about 2 to 3 minutes. Clapping or yelling after comments is not appropriate in a public meeting. Council, to you, as usual, I ask that you and staff listen and take notes during the public hearing. I will give you and the applicant an opportunity to speak after I close the public hearing. So we'll move on to item 8A, which is a public hearing and consideration to approve an ordinance for zone change request Z-22-11 to approve the design and use of an already zoned planned unit development residential parcel of 13.77 acres located at approximately the northeast corner of Bella Vista Drive and Desert Cactus Drive. And Drew Ellerman, our Community Development Director, will, if you would give us some history on this and present what's before the council tonight. Applicant, I'll give you an opportunity to speak before the public hearing if you would like, and certainly after the public hearing. Okay, go ahead, Drew.
I'll try. I won't go to the whole history because that's 10 years in the making, I think. So, but most recently,
felt like it was relevant.
A couple of years ago, a PUD was approved of an apartment complex. I think it was 181, 182 units. That project could never get picked up by a builder, so to speak. I think they had it and they were trying to get it sold and nobody wanted to take it. So that timed out. But it doesn't lose its PUD zoning, it just loses its design. It has an 18-month window on it to get it taken care of, and we knew nothing was going to happen. So the Wasatch Builders came and contacted the owners and felt good about a project they'd like to propose. They've built one or so many of these up in Utah or Salt Lake County already. Now, that's what this one's modeled after. And so that's kind of a little bit of the history of this piece has seen quite a few proposals, and so we're hoping that we can get one approved and get one built, just so we can then move forward. So, but we'll see how this goes tonight. I'd just like to jump into the report at this time, and the applicant is requesting approval of this. We still run them under a zone change because it's really a clean way to do it, I guess, for us. So, but it is basically for this proposed use and design on this already PUD zoned parcel. This particular proposal design is still within the 13.77 acres of it's been the same ever since it was created, and wishing to utilize the PUD multifamily residential standards. The development will be in the form of 32 townhomes. There will be 8 fourplex buildings, and those are the ones around the street perimeter that you see off of Bella Vista Drive, and I'm still used to calling it Bonnie Lane, but it's Desert Cactus. And so those particular buildings are the townhomes, and they'll be in a fourplex format. And so there's 32 of them. Following that up, there is a proposal of 66 one-bedroom units, 84 two-bedroom units, and then 18 three-bedroom units scattered throughout the other buildings on the interior of the project. This would be a total proposal of 200 dwelling units throughout the development, equaling a 14.52 dwelling unit per acre ratio. The surrounding zoning to this proposed development is service commercial C2 to the north and east, and PUD residential to the west and south. The allowed density, according to the general plan in the land use map, is the medium high density residential, which carries a 7 to 12 dwelling unit per acre ratio. The planned unit development standards allow for increases in units if they meet certain criteria as outlined in the ordinance. The developer is wishing to utilize increased recreational facility area, also partial on tree-lined streets around the perimeter. Again, they've kind of lined those two main streets and internally, but I don't call those streets, so I can't really, they're kind of just pathways and driveways to get to parking stalls. But there, you can see on the picture shown, there's a lot of trees provided along, again, Bella Vista and Desert Cactus.
So Drew, let me just ask one quick question. Is this diagram accurate for how many trees we're going to have?
I pretty much hold them to that. Now I do, part of my proposal, conditions, I always put that they have to bring a final landscape plan. Again, because sometimes those things change or they can't get what they thought, especially if it's people up north, they'll put a particular kind of tree or something, and then we'll tell them, no, there's better trees for our climate and tolerance down here. So, but they will, the count I do keep pretty much spot on. I let them do different trees, but I do keep them to the count. Hope that answers your question, Councilman.
Thank you.
Also, partially, they'd like just to notice that they've added some extra landscaping open space on the periphery, especially at that corner. They've moved one of their amenities there, so it's not just a building. So it's kind of an opening to the development by putting the pickleball courts and a little bit of play lawn on that corner of Desert Cactus, not just buildings like some projects you may see. They also have special street design that was approved previously, and it's the one that we kind of use on Main Street, where you'll have the indentation of parking with some landscaping and things out. So it's kind of an added feature there. It helps slow traffic down, adds a little bit better streetscape. So these are just a multiple of the things they'd like to throw as proposals to help them get their extra 2.52 dwelling units per acre. And again, that's totally on the council's discretion. I will, just on that landscaping thing, the requirement for them is a minimum of 40,000 square feet of recreation play area. Because of the way the code's written, they're actually proposing nearly 73,000 square feet with all the, and I didn't add all the green space in here because we'll talk about that with our new water conservation items, but I'm just hitting some of the other ones. They have roughly 73. So that's an increase of 81% of recreation place for the families and the kids that live within the development. So moving on, the required parking for the proposal would be 334 stalls for the apartment units. That would be 68 for the townhome units, and then an additional 57 required for visitor parking, for a total of 398 parking stalls. The applicant is showing 401 stalls, including 82 garage stalls. That would be for the 64, to count on the townhomes, those 18, so I'm reading that wrong, 64 townhome and 18 additional garage stalls that are added, as you can see over on the far east, those kind of light brown stalls where they have that extra RV parking, but those brown squares over there are actually garages that will probably be rented out on a first come, first served basis for people who want to pay a little bit more. So, but those still count as one of the required parking. So they'll be able to have those.
I guess those could also be storage. They
could end up being storage. We hope they use them as garages if we're giving them credit for that. So, so with that, there's 300, and then after taking all the garage stalls between the ones added on the east and the garages that are incorporated in the townhomes, there is an extra 319 open parking stalls. There is also provided with this development 91 extra parking stalls in addition over on that far east. That's going to be kind of a storage area that people can probably rent for, say, someone if they did have a trailer or extra vehicle, that they could rent extra space over in this 91 extra stalls on that far east. Also, if they had boats or whatever, that would be the place for them to be able to park them. The applicant is showing sufficient parking for this townhome and apartment unit development. Staff's supportive of the project at this location, with the building layout, the exterior finishes being aesthetically attractive. The amenities are above standard, the standard requirements, and the project will be an added value, we feel, to the area and to the city. The Planning Commission reviewed this at their May 18th, 2022 meeting. Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of Z-22-11 for the design and use approval for this currently planned unit development residential zone property, and this is on to you, the City Council. This, of course, based on the findings and subject to the conditions in the report. Now, before we go, I'll just scroll through some of the elevations. I apologize. I think you got the shorter version. There's a few extra, if you know, that we did add to you, but they're just extensions of what you had in your packet. This is kind of just a regular standard 3-story apartment. They're well within the height on these buildings. This photo is just showing from an end unit and interior as well. And here's what it looks like on again, the townhomes have the front doors on the streetscape side, at least on cactus, desert cactus. This is what you'll see from the street. And then on the back end, you can see up in this, on the right-hand side there, the garages will be on the back side of the townhomes. Again, another streetscape on the townhome over here on the left. And then here's some just interior ones that weren't in here. This is the clubhouse, main entrance there, where they'll probably have their offices and clubhouse area. And again, just more interior around that pool area, clubhouse views. These are some of the interior views that you would see in you know, not in the parking area, but in between the buildings. These kind of open areas. The one on the right kind of show, if you notice, there was quite a few places where they had barbecue and dining. They're going to offer for their residents to have some outdoor areas, and they'll be with a pavilion. And there's 8 of those throughout the project. Also, this is again that roundabout area entrance with the pool area. If you want to refresh your things, you'll probably be able to follow these through, I hope.
Yeah. Drew, can you pull up the roadway? Just the Google image or
Oh, just the aerial?
just
Okay.
when you're done.
Yeah, yeah, we'll go to that right after. Again, this is the entrance up here in that top right left-hand corner. And again, clubhouse, interior around the clubhouse and amenity area, these 4 photos. And again, these are just more, again, elevations from different perspective and angle. And then they just sent you you guys that have this about the colors and the stuccos and the metal finishes, etc. So I'll go to your aerial now. Is that far enough down? You want me to go a little lower?
I'd like to see the roadway.
Okay.
Just zoom up on the road, the existing roadway.
Okay.
So there's no striping on this roadway right now.
Not right now, there's not.
Okay. That's what I needed. Thanks, Drew.
Okay. So with that, council, I'll be, I think, more than glad to answer any questions you have as you've looked at this project.
Council questions, comments, clarifications with staff?
Yeah, just really, trying to rack my brain because I remember going back and forth on this entire development when I was on Planning Commission. Can you give just a brief history of the overall site and that the general plan and the zone change on that? And because as I recall, it was an overall, we approved the entire property.
At one time, it came in as an overall proposal. Then I can't remember if it was citizens or the council at that time wanted to see it broken up into pieces to make it easier to go by. And so it's been through a lot. When you were back on the Planning Commission, I think the originals were brought in as 2 overall, the whole thing, PUD. And then after you left, it got broke down into individuals. That's when Councilman Coates was a planning commissioner, I think by then it was broken into the pieces somewhat.
Yeah, I don't know which version that was, but
Yeah, again, there's been many versions.
Did this come just in the recent past? It came before us. Was it 240 units or 220, or now it's down to 200?
No, you had, again, give you back a little history. You just had a proposal of a general plan amendment to go from medium high density to high density. So it could have had, they weren't proposing that many at that time. It's just the general plan with that much acreage at the 16 units per acre would have been around 240 if the general, so it wasn't proposed to you at that because we didn't give you a plan of that. But that's what, the general plan would have allowed at high density around 14 acres would be 240 something. So
I think I'd like to ask a question before I open the public hearing. Can you go back to the parking? Can you just break out the free parking versus the leased parking? What they would want to rent.
right, if you can see my cursor, else I can get my drawing pencil out. But everybody makes fun of me when I get the drawing pencil.
No, get
out.
the pencil.
Get the pencil. I like to draw. So. No, we've been staff lately on some of these projects, especially with the apartments. We've kind of asked developers if they can to offer some garages for some people that may want them. So, in the beginning, I asked them, hey, it would be great because we've had others, but in this red area, could you just provide some single car garages for those that would like to have them? Now, we could probably, if you wanted to, make a condition that these are not to be used as storage units, or else you designate them as storage units and some as garages.
how can we do that? How can we do that legally, though? How can we make a condition, and then who's going to monitor that?
Well, that's the hard part, I think, is that we'd have to, but
I think it's great that they're providing them, but all these apartments, some will use them as garage, some will use them as storage. So I would ask our Councilman Thad Sigmiller if he agrees that we don't have the authority to monitor what they use those garages as.
I'm just thinking through all of the garage manifestations in the city. Typically, we don't spend a lot of time regulating what happens in there unless it comes into conflict with a law.
Like a meth lab? Sorry, I know this is serious.
There's none of those in this city. But yes, the reality is we do have law enforcement that spend time in garages, but it's because of an issue that's going on. Otherwise, we don't care whether it houses, camping gear, motorcycles, or whatever else, right? Zoning is technically a law, and if this council wants to make as a matter of zoning law the type of usage there, I think that you can. Whether we would successfully enforce that or even try to enforce that would be a second question. But the challenge is the minute you get inside the curtilage of a residence, the law starts to be very limited in what government can do there and what they should do.
Well, and do we want to be in that? Like we as a city don't want to be in regulating if people are putting stuff in their garages, their cars, or not. I don't personally.
And these ones aren't in the residence, so these are detached, and so I think we might be able to make some argument about what happens there if that's the desire. But generally speaking, we don't spend much time wondering about what's going on inside garages.
I wouldn't want to do that either.
Yeah, now we'll point out that the owners and the builders are going to manage these, and they're very, very hands-on with the management. That's one of the things they like to brag about, that's one of their pluses, is that they are very right on. They don't turn it over to a property management company that they have to then, another party in between. So we'll let them kind of address what they think about that. I think would be the best thing, Councilman, if that works. See what they might have to say about that or what they might offer.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, I know on one of these proposals, are these RV storages for the residents only?
We'll have them address that too. It's a good question.
Okay. So let's stay on that thread for just a minute before we hear from the applicant and open the public hearing. Can you just do the breakdown of free parking versus leased parking? And I'm just trying to we had a lot of numbers there And I'm
Right.
just trying to wrap my head around the potential occupancy and the available parking.
Yeah, I'll be glad to do that. They are proposing. It's required for them to have 398 parking stalls for the units. They're proposing 401.
Did you say 390?
398. That's including all the visitor parking that's required. There's 57 visitor parking required because of the units. So Mayor, there is a total of 401, and parking stalls, including the 2-car garages of the townhomes. Now, what I did not include in this, and it is there, and it has to have some value to it, is every one of those driveways going into the 2-car garage is a 2-car. I made them do them 20-foot length, just like a parking stall would, and it's a 2-car driveway. So there can be accounted some of that in there. Now, again, we know some people are going to use that 2-car garage. Probably half of it will end up being storage, so they'll use one covered and one out in the driveway. But in essence, I have those driveways can be parked on.
So
we're not even counting them as. So you have an additional for every townhome. I have four extra basic stalls that could be.
Okay, that was my question. If those those concrete skirts were counted in the 401, but they're not.
They're
So,
not.
I mean,
That's
good parking.
and not even. And I like to count street, but they do have a special street design to help parking. But I'm not counting those either as anything toward their
Are
requirement.
they single car garage or double car garage? 'Cause I didn't.
We'll have them. Where's Wasatch?
He's
Two.
saying 2.
It's a 2.
Or he's
yeah.
saying peace. He's out. Okay.
Don't do that one. I went to England on my mission. That's not.
Okay, so I'm assuming the driveways are the same width, so they could fit 2 cars potentially on.
Well, we could make it where they have to be like we've done others. It has to be a minimum of 18. Because
18
again, my
feet.
stalls are 9 by 20. So we just say every driveway has to be a minimum of 18 by 20
Every garage width.
driveway. Every
What
driveway.
about the garage width?
Well, we know the garage, usually a 2-car garage has a 16-foot door on it. That's pretty standard. But we can make sure that the driveway itself is 18 feet wide.
So of the 401, you've drawn around the least garages, but does that include the stalls behind that, the open stalls, or those?
That's part of the 91 extra above and beyond.
So the only thing leased then is the garage spaces.
Those individuals in that red box.
And is that included in the 401?
Yes.
And required is 398.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and the plan says they've got 494 total parking stalls.
That's including the 91.
Okay.
And again, there's 1 or 2 missing between my calculations would say they have 492 and the paper says 4. Yeah.
Can you pull up the map again?
Which map do you want?
To kind of see the visual of it for the general land use of the area?
Oh, you want the city view?
Yeah, the city view.
This one?
Yeah, so can you explain where the townhomes are and where the parking will be for those, RV parking and everything? And the garages.
I'm not going to be real straight. This is roughly in this area here, that extra RV area. And then those garages I circled are going to be somewhere right here. But they'll be entered, of course, from this side. This will be gated. So I better speak in the mic. Tara's about to probably tell me, Drew.
Say that again, Drew.
Yeah, so this area over here with the slash mark is just the extra RV storage kind of parking. This reddish rectangle here is just an indication of those garages. And again, I just put an arrow because they'll all be entering from that left side of that box. If that helps you, that's kind of. And then right over here, even though the picture's not showing it because it's an older map, this is all that Turner that's loaded with a bunch of RVs in it right now if you drove out there. This whole area, here is loaded with RV storage right now from the Turners that own that business off of Telegraph. Yeah, it's not too far from your home, kind of. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
So Drew, before we open the public hearing, I'd like to just get some more clarification. I have been around this very project for years as well. The question that I have and I still have is on density. There's been, over the years, the residents that live Bella Vista and around there, excuse me, they have a general feeling that the densities have always been pushed beyond what should be allowed, and that there's always been that consideration from the developer. Would you talk specifically about density? Are they within the densities now? Is it a greater density now than it was a year or two or 3 or 4 ago? Just to try to get an idea of where that lies. Because I'm sure that's going to be a question that's going to be asked.
Yeah, it is, and we kind of talked about that in the general plan. The last project had 181 or 182, which is right, I think, at the 12 dwelling units per acre on the near 14 acre parcel. And they might have got a few extra units in, because here, let me just pull up my calculator real quick, and I can.
So while you're calculating, let me just ask you this. So this recreational facilities credit, is that the reason that they're able to get 17 more pad sites now? Or excuse me, density now? I'm trying to understand.
That's what they're asking for. They're trying, and again, the PUD allows for them to try to get credits by doing extra things in it.
Right.
And so they are, one of the ones in there is definitely, and that one, some of them said for every percentage of this, they get 1 dwelling unit per acre on the other credit things. On the recreational area, the code just read that we'll let them propose something, and we're going to listen to it about a case-by-case basis, but there was no 1 unit per acre. It was just left open to whatever the council felt was deserving based on extra of that.
So just to be really clear, so with the recreational facilities credits, that brings them from 183 to 200?
Right, part of that. I'm just saying that they want to they want the council, staff and them and the applicant have talked this over. So what we like to propose is that with the increase in recreational and the external, the extra adding of all the trees along the periphery, and having, some of that more open out there on the periphery instead of putting buildings really tight. And I'm going to go back to I can find my browser now. Again, because of what they've done on the corner and not put buildings on it, they've left that kind of an open periphery, thing. And then in between the buildings, if you look at a lot of townhome projects, they put them and they go to the minimum 10 feet away from each other all around the perimeter. They've left gaps purposefully along the street frontage so you could actually see into the project, not be just a wall of townhomes and then, have them on the inside. So they've opened that area up. They've added all the trees. They left the corner open, and they've got almost double the size in recreation areas. So that's what they're hoping that the council could use to give them the extra 2.5 dwelling units to get up to the 200. From the previously approved.
I apologize. I thought you were.
As I say, from the previous approved one, which was 181, I think, is what the last one had. So they're asking for an extra 20 units based on these things that they're offering. Now, again, it's at the council's. That's what PUDs are. I like to refer to PUD sometimes as negotiating zoning. For this, we get this, and for that, you get that.
So would you give us, the council, just an idea when you say they've done twice as much recreation? What does that look like? I mean, from original, what they had in a standard PUD and what they're asking for now with this recreational facilities?
Yeah, the code right now requires, and it's based on units. The PUD says there's you have to have 5 units, and it's a minimum you have to have 1,000 square feet. And for every unit above that, it's 200 square feet. So you take, the 1,000 for the first 5 units is 1,000 square feet of recreational, whatever they, propose. And to go above that, so they're required to have 40,000 square feet of recreation play area of some sort, because that's based on the 200 units. They, and again, I haven't counted all the grass areas. I'm just hitting things that would be an amenity that are above than average. A flat lawn to me is not an amenity, so I didn't put that in the calculation. I calculated around the pickleball courts, and I didn't do all the area. I just, again, I tried not to be so generous that way and just say how much do they really have, not try to fluff it. So I just kind of, measured things as I could and came up. So between the pickleball area and the little lawn play areas, the pool, the clubhouse, the volleyball, the splash pad, and then the bocce ball and play area up above that, the play area over on the right, and then all of the barbecue dining areas, I put those in. The 2 dog runs came up to roughly 72,800 square feet. And like I say, you're right about there. So that's above and beyond the 40. So that's an extra 32,500 square feet of area, that the residents can use as recreation. And that's what just to get you where, I came up with that.
Could you show us, Drew, on that satellite map? Maybe take your pencil, and as you're coming down off of Bella Vista there, whereabouts is the pickleball court in that nice open space? Right about
roughly
there.
right here on that
Yeah.
corner. And again, my perspective,
That's nice, yeah.
don't hold me to that being right on scale. I'm pretty close usually, but this would be where you're going to have that pickleball court, lawn area, just as you hit that corner. It's not going to, again, I kind of appreciate it because sometimes people put buildings right there to help,
Right.
protect
I
or
like
hide
that,
or whatever. But corners are always something that people see, and it's great if you can see there and look into the project. And see some of the things they'll have there. So,
Was there go ahead? Oh, I didn't mean. Do you have more? Was there a discussion on a time frame for when the amenities would be built?
we have that built into the code now. It's pretty standard after we've done this enough. We're pretty much at the 30. A third of them this has to be. And let's go read that. Sorry, Mayor. I'm just gonna.
Aren't we holding it to building permit now?
We do. That's what I say. So at a third of the units, generally, we would say this would have to be done. So I'm just going to go back to.
Yeah, it's still got the old verbiage. It says the 60th unit. So
Which one did it say?
condition 9. It does say a third of the build out of the development.
Okay. Yeah, so condition 9, the proposed amenities will be completed before 1/3 build out of the development is completed, roughly before, because the 1/3 in this case would be roughly 60th unit completed within the project.
So
Now, some of these guys are wise. What they'll do is they'll get their amenities up because that's what draws the people in, especially if it's an apartment complex. They'll want to be drawing the people in, but we'll let them tell us. But this this would be the minimum they'd have to do. Hopefully they say, hey, we plan on doing them even before that. We'll let the cat write that down on your notes there, guys. So,
but it's not a building permit. So on these,
yeah, but this is, well, this, no, yeah, because
how do
they
we
still
do
have
that?
to get a C of O on a unit, even though it's an apartment.
What about the townhomes?
I'm going to count that as all the units. I'm going to count as whether it's a townhome or an apartment. I'm going to count it as unless you want to do something different, I'm fine.
But the concern we've had is that we've said CO, and we just don't want to go down the road where someone's trying to close on their house and we're like, well, we won't give you a CO because your developer who's selling you the house hasn't finished his park. I don't want to put us in a hard spot, and we've been put in that hard spot too often. So we just need to look at that and say, okay, we're not going to issue a building permit, but my question to you is, are these apartments is one building permit, or does each building get their own building permit?
They're going to be one permit, I bet, on. That's kind of how we'll do that. We don't break them down that way. They'll get a permit for a building on an apartment
But
complex.
each building, not just, so.
Right. Each building has to have its own individual permit.
Yeah,
You're
so
correct.
it won't be like one building permit and then go get 7 apartments at once.
Right. we can change that verse. I have no, well, we can play with that how the council wants. You could say buildings, or however you want to feel like you want to do it. I think we'll be fine with. So
Just to have consistency, because if you look at 10 and 11, it does mention building permits. So
yeah, I only did the C of O because that's kind of what we've used in the past, and again trying to be consistent with others on that the amenity part of it, because it is a big difference between pulling the permit and getting that final C of O.
We're
you
changing
all
our
understand that.
methodology because of the problems we've had.
And I'm fine with that. Yeah,
So
and
we
that's
need
what
to-
we should always do. We should always improve, learning from the past. I have no problems with how the council wants to proceed, because that's how we should get better. Is saying, hey, we used to think this way, but now we want to go this direction. I don't think there's any issue with that.
Councilman Ivy.
One more question. So we're all aware that on condition number 11, that addresses 1100 East, and the wording says will need to be already in place. When you say in place, does that mean operational?
Open and running.
So it's operational.
They're working on that one right now, so I don't think that's going to be much of an issue by the time they get through construction drawings. And
The reason I asked
permits.
that is there was a question from one of the residents that reached out, and their concern was, well, one of their concerns was the traffic. So
Yep.
glad
No, and
that's a
those
condition.
townhomes being built, they know they want to start building more of those. So I have my opinion would be that 1100 East is going to be in before this gets started, just because they want to get those townhomes built. And that's a limit of 30 from previous zoning. So
Council, insightful questions to staff. Any further questions? Applicant, would you like to address anything that's been brought up at this point, or would you prefer to wait until after the public hearing? I'll give you the opportunity to speak both times if you'd like. And if you just remember to state your name for the record, please.
Josh Lyon with Wasatch.
Just get a little closer to that mic there so our recorder can hear you.
Right. Josh Lyon with Wasatch Group.
Good to see you, Josh.
Great to see you guys. I have a pretty good list going. First, thanks, Drew. You've handled the lion's share of the questions and done a great job of it. We've been working with staff for some time on this, to repeat, not to repeat everything that Drew said.
Could you just hold that mic up and just get our recorder just is trying to hear you.
So we picked this project up, like Drew said, with similar design, very similar with the townhomes on the perimeter, the 3-story apartments on the interior. So it kind of graduates nicely from your, commercial areas to a 3-story to a 2-story, and then to the 2-story townhomes right directly across the street from this. So we feel like it works well in the neighborhood. I don't want to rehash everything Drew's gone over, but to dive into some of the questions and comments. Amenity timing is the most recent conversation. Wasatch is a builder and owner and holder of these properties, over 16,000 apartments. And they take a lot of pride in the ownership of those, and it's beneficial for us if those, build the reputation that they have. So we would build the amenities right along with the actual buildings themselves. We wouldn't want to turn over a unit without those amenities available to the customer. So we'd have a full staff of property management that reside on this property. So they'd be on site, available to manage, parking, facilities, and everything else that needs to happen while on site. So
Josh, are these exclusively rentals?
they are. It'll be a single ownership.
Even the townhomes?
Correct. They'll be treated with the same property management as the apartments.
Can you address my question about the RV parking?
Yes, so the RV parking originated from the previous plan, which I think is 183 units, Drew, was approved for. And that site plan showed this layout where you had townhomes perimeter, apartments on the rear, and then it had a large RV parking area to the right. So when we came in to talk about a higher density, then we spread the units out across the property. Once you spread the units out, it's not using that property as it should be used. So once we reduced to the 200, then we pushed it back and giving back a lot more similar layout than what was previously approved. So the RV parking Right now, it's not a final decision on if that's available to the public or not. We're open to either.
Well, I remember on the last time we made it very clear that it needed to be open to, no, hold on, only open to your residents. We don't want this being a commercial use RV spot, because then that changes the zone.
It'd be counterproductive.
And I'm concerned that just so you know, we bring this up with everybody, is that we have our code that requires parking. Our code is lacking with what we're seeing. I don't know if it's because of where we're at and people have big vehicles and everyone has 2 vehicles or 3 or whatever they have, but we feel like on these apartment complexes, we're not getting enough parking. And what's happening is they're parking out on the public streets, which they have the right to, but it's pushing, I call it as a nuisance to the other residents trying to get through the public roads. So I'm concerned that we are blocking off, not providing enough parking.
Okay, that's understandable. I think that we have let me clarify some of the parking to how I understand it, and we can verify all of this after the fact. So separating the apartments from the townhomes, the apartments themselves, as I have it, shows that the apartment requirement is that we'd have 335 stalls, which is 1.99 stalls a unit. What's been provided for those stalls is 348 units. So we'd have 348 parking stalls for those units and the 18 garages. So you're at 2.7 stalls per unit on the apartment side. Like Drew was talking about on the townhomes, they're 2-car garages with a 2-car driveway. So they're self-parking plus guest parking. And then additional
is
to
your
that,
guest parking the driveway in front?
the driveway itself.
Okay,
So you'd have 4 stalls per.
And I know you guys do this a lot, but every townhome I drive by, there's the driveway up front is not for guests, it's the resident. And it's just how the nature of how our economy is right now. So I'm just bringing that to your attention, that that's a concern for me, is that, I just went by a recent development that we approved it, and it is already slammed with people and they're parking in non-parking areas, and we thought we got that one right, and it just seems like we just can't get enough parking in these developments to supply, because you're getting larger families with the current cost of living that are having to go to this, and say they even have one high school kid, and then all of a sudden there's 3 or 4 cars there, and so these are just the concerns I have. And so I'm concerned that now we have a whole area for RV, but it's only if you pay extra money. So if we have the room, why don't we just make it, and maybe it's not as big of an RV storage, and we put the gate farther back or something. So that's just some suggestion. I'm surprised we have so much extra paid parking for a development that probably needs it anyways.
And that was another comment. So additional to the parking that's been asked for is there are 43 RV stalls that are 12 by 24, 22 RV stalls that are 12 by 30, and then there's 26 parking spots out on the street, which we're not counting in that calculation. So in this situation, I understand that street parking has become a concern. In this one, we're not counting it, but it is usable.
Can you tell me, because this is your world, right? You do a lot. This is what you do as apartments. How much RV parking is typical for people in apartments? I just don't see it, so that's why I'm.
So that's kind of the changes, that are taking place. Exactly what you're just saying is the housing pricing is so expensive that a lot of people are moved into a townhome. They're pushed into apartment living, and they still want to be boat people. They still want to be RV people. They still want to have the ability and the amenity of what you would have at your home. They're just doing it through the apartment position. So we're seeing a lot more as that being an amenity to the people that live there.
Yeah, and you see where I'm coming from is because they're being pushed in these smaller homes, they still have the amount of stuff, so their garages are filling up, so we can't, very rarely do I drive by it every day and the garages are full of stuff and they're parked out front. So it kind of eliminates the garage aspect. But.
So we're, as a PUD, we're absolutely open to the option and the discussion. If it's not meeting the parking that you feel that it needs, then we're open to the discussion of having an additional parking. like I say, we tried to match this site plan as closely to the plan that was previously approved, and that RV parking was approved on that previous plan.
So these RV parking spaces and those little garages will be rented to tenants for extra money?
Correct.
Okay.
Applicant, anything else you'd like to share based on the conversation thus far?
I think we're good on the entrances. Just as far as traffic goes, we've met with the Bella Vista community a couple times. We've had some meetings where we've visited with them and reached out to them for some of their opinion. That corner pickleball court kind of established from that. It's something they're coming off the hill. That's their visible view. They were concerned about traffic, so we've added a third entrance on the far east that would hopefully encourage traffic to exit to the east to 1100. So we're working with with the neighborhood, and we've even talked to them about exterior colors and changed the color of their roofing so it looks better from up on the hill. So we're happy to work with them.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'll give you an opportunity to speak again after the public hearing. So just a reminder, as it's been a bit, let's, if we don't mind keeping the comments relevant to what's before us today. We know there's a history there. Let's keep them on topic. If something's been brought up, please bring up something else, and we don't need to be repetitive. And about 2 to 3 minutes would be great, but we also we really appreciate each of you being here. We want to hear you. We want your input. We've received some emails and others on this as well. So at this time, I will open the public hearing on this item and invite any who would like to come forward to speak to the council.
Hi, my name is Jan Keefe. I just want some clarification here. Looking at this, on the east side of this development, at one point there was supposed to be an RV parking for the people that are in Desert Flower and the townhomes that are all now being built. Does this property include that part, so that's no longer going to be there?
So really good question. We're gonna listen and make a note of that and address that questions after the public hearing. So staff and council are making notes.
Okay, I was just
But we
curious.
want to hear you, Jan. Anything else? Any other comments, questions that you have?
I can't think of anything right now. Thank you.
So your questions in regards to the original plan for RV parking for a different development.
It was. My understanding is it was approved for what they've built now, over at Desert Flower, and then the townhomes that they're building now, that they were going to have RV parking over there so that the people that move in there would have a place to put their stuff so they're not parked all over the street and
Gotcha.
everything. I was just curious because I haven't quite figured that out yet.
And that's a really good point about the interconnectivity of a
everything
few
being
moving
built,
parts.
Yeah, and what was already agreed to. And
Really good point. Really good question. We'll address that after the public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure there are others. I recognize some neighbors.
And husbands.
So this is the Keefe family part 2.
Would you say that one more time?
Terry Keefe and Drew, I'm getting up this time, not from the Planning Commission. During the Planning Commission meeting, the question I have is the amenities were discussed, the splash
Speaking to that
pad.
mic there, Terry. I know this is nothing new for you with your public service over the years, but
I'm sorry, Mayor. During the Planning Commission meeting, the amenities were discussed, the splash pad and the swimming pool and the grass areas. And I think my question about the grass areas was concerned because, Drew, if I understand you this evening, you didn't count that in your calculation of square footage for the amenities?
No, well, the one area I did was where it says bocce.
Okay.
I just ticked this brown and green area right here.
Okay.
And then the one area I will say is I did add this play area, this one lawn, because our new ordinance allows, you can have grass in a multifamily project if it's part of the amenity for play. So I did add this one right here. I didn't add this green up here, up top.
Okay.
But yeah, it's hard to find my cursor. But this one over on this far right side, you can see my cursor play through the grass.
I do, yes.
That's the only grass other than the lawn where it says lawn out front. I didn't do all the area, just the strips of lawn, just to clarify that. That's all the grass I added in the recreation area was just those because they
Okay.
are allowed to use, and they should have some grass to play on.
Yes, I agree. And I appreciate your clarifying that, which now brings me to the swimming pool, because before the planning commission voted, Mr. Segmiller, the city attorney, brought up the fact that the council had recently passed an ordinance about water features in swimming pools in multifamily housing units, but didn't really elaborate, nor did the planning commission ask any questions. So my question today is that, does that ordinance that the council recently passed affect those two amenities in this project?
Do I answer that now or later?
If you can be concise. So it sounds like probably later. I'm teasing.
I'll
Pat.
answer it now. So the new ordinance had two sections, each broken up into two parts. There was a residential section and a non-residential section. In the residential section, construction standards, multiple family had its own provisions. In the residential landscape standards, multiple family was referred to the commercial section. So if you go down to the non-residential / commercial section, in the commercial section, pools are disallowed as a construction standard, but those construction standards do not apply to multiple family.
Okay.
So that pool is not regulated by the new ordinance. In the non-residential / commercial, multiple family adopts the same landscape standards as commercial / non-residential. That means that irrigated lawn may only be within an active recreation area, only in areas that are 8 feet or wider, and only on slopes that are less than 15% of a degree.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. The only other concern I have, this is a broken record for you all, is going to be the traffic emptying out onto Bella Vista. I know that the third driveway has been put in on the east side of the project in an attempt to direct traffic to 1100 East for a light. Good luck with that. I just don't see it happening because I've done kind of a little unofficial traffic survey at Bella Vista and Telegraph, and probably about 90% of the traffic turns left, not right at that intersection. So I would hope the council would consider that when we get this project, when we get the rest of the townhomes, when we get the rest of the townhomes or single family homes that are coming before you soon behind the townhomes, there's going to be a tremendous amount of traffic exiting out onto Bella Vista, in my opinion, and from my experience in dealing with these from a law enforcement perspective, 1100 East is not going to be utilized. So I'm just surprised if a traffic survey was done. I don't know what it was based on because there was no traffic there for the survey to be based upon. It would all have been speculation. So with that, thank you. I appreciate the council. I do want to say I appreciate Wasatch Construction. They did meet with us a couple of times. They did listen to our concerns. Obviously, there was a difference between density numbers of units between what they wanted and what we wanted. They came back once and have reduced it, but it was still in the high density area. So they've come back with this plan, which has reduced it from the 213 units or whatever it is, about 20 units. So in all fairness, I have to say, from my personal opinion, they've tried to work with us, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Terry. Appreciate you. Others who would like to come forward?
My name is Ron Romney. I do have just a couple of comments. I agree with the discussion here about the RV parking. At one point in the various proposals that we had, they indicated that RV parking would be for rental to anyone who wanted to rent one. I think that it should be a requirement that it only be residents, okay, that the residents, that the garages and the RV parking would be only for residents of the complex, okay, that it not be done, if it's charged for as an extra revenue stream for the project, I suppose that's fine, that doesn't matter, but I agree with the issue about the parking. The only other comment that I have and that I would like to have clarified more specifically is exactly how we get to the density, okay? According to the general plan thing of 7 to 12 units per acre, there would be allowable at the maximum of 165 units for the 13.77 acres. Okay, I understand the exceptions, but how are we getting there? How are we authorizing the other 35 units? Is it 10 units for the extra amenities? Is it 10 units for the extra trees? How is it? The ordinance is pretty specific, okay? For extra things, you get 1 unit per acre. Well, there's only, in my reading of the ordinance, there's only 2 things that they qualify for, and that would only allow them about 20 some units extra. So I think that you should have a clear accounting of that. Under what specific exception to the ordinance, or allow, how many units did you get for that exception, and how many units did you get for this one, and how many units did you get for this one, and does it comply with the ordinance? This is one of the arguments that we've had as neighbors of the thing over all a period of time is we have an ordinance. If it fits the ordinance, fine. What can we argue about? We can't do that. But too many times it's nebulous about the compliance with the ordinance. If it complies with the ordinance, what can we say? Okay, we can't do that. But we should know specifically how, in fact, it does comply with the ordinance, and then we have to say that we're happy with it. So that's the only thing. I do agree with the discussion that's happening about the parking. We can already see it now with the other developments in the townhomes that are being built along Cactus Flower Drive. We're now encountering people, a couple of the residents in those townhomes that already been sold are parking their RVs and their boat in the driveway and their cars out on the street, okay, on Bella Vista Drive, right on the curve as you come down the hill. And at night, you can't see those black cars that are parked out there very well, okay? So this whole discussion of the parking spaces and all that, I completely agree with that, and it's something that I think that should be addressed and should be taken very seriously in any approval that's done by the council. Thank you.
Well said. Thank you, Ron. And Drew, if you'll make a note to address the specifics on the density after the public hearing's closed. Others who would like to speak, please.
Hello, my name is Sherry Olson. I live in Bella Vista. And I kind of will touch on that too. The one condos they're just making, the guy with the boat, the garage is filled, he has a truck, he has a car, and he parks it every night. And someone from the police department came down and warned him. Well, they put him away, and then at nighttime, they park him out on the street again, and coming down there is very bad. I would like to see where they can park on either side all the way down to Bella Vista. If you get them parking on both sides, and you get a fire, and you got fire trucks trying to come up there, we're going to be in really bad shape for anybody that lives there. It just should be no parking either side. They put some signs up, said only on that side, and they did a bit, but then if no one was there, they parked on the other side. But I think for safety, that's something that really should be done, because people do not park in their driveways, in their garages much anymore. It's all toys, and they have more than 2 cars usually. Anyway, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you for your points. Others who would like to speak to this item? And just, we've heard about the parking, the RV parking, we've heard about the density. Is there anything that has not been brought up already that should be brought up? Okay, seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing. And at this point, I will turn to the council and staff to address any of the points that were brought up by the public. And we'll also invite the applicant momentarily to come up and address those.
So I'd like to talk to Mike Shaw about, I had an idea. I'll let Mike come up and
Mike,
see if we
come
can
on.
do this. I figured I hadn't heard from Mike in a couple minutes, so. So I had an idea of what if we just stripe Bella Vista so that you can't park on it. Make it 4 lanes all the way down it. And then if they park there, they're in a lane and they'll be towed. I mean, I know we can't say you can't park on a public road because it's a public road, but if it's striped for 4 lane, you can't impede traffic. So if we made that as a condition to stripe it so that it's 4 lane, it's 40 feet wide. I measured it on Google, so I know it's accurate. And if you did 2 12-foot lanes, that's 48 feet with 1 foot on each side. I think we could do that, Mike, or do you think that doesn't meet the section?
Normally, a 60-foot right-of-way, we don't do a 4-lane cross-section, but we can, yes.
It was just a thought that way it would impede people from parking there if you can't park in a lane of traffic. And so we'll stripe it 4 lanes all the way out. It's not like it's a long linear road. It ends at Telegraph. So I was just thinking maybe stripe it so that we can't. Don't stripe it how Drew's drawn because that's wrong. The other thought I had is, and I don't know if you've had a chance to fully review the traffic study, but when all these come on, will it warrant the light at Bella Vista?
Yes.
So
when this whole development develops out, it will definitely warrant, and we keep monitoring it. And at the time it does meet warrants, then we will schedule it in for a signal. It is master planned as a signal at that intersection.
For clarity, is that at Bella Vista or to the east?
Bella Vista at Telegraph.
So
And
my,
the same issue at 1100 East and Telegraph.
my question is, on the last development, we had them help us with that light because it's all theirs. I don't know if that's covered in their impact fees or if it's
Because the last development's actually going to have a lot more traffic that's already existing generated traffic.
okay. All right, I just want to be clear so we're fair with everyone, that we're not making one person do it and not the other.
There are quite a few other things. The
Okay.
traffic on Telegraph at 500 West is much, much greater than Telegraph at this location.
Okay. I have a whole list, but I'll let other people talk for a minute.
I'm just trying to visualize in my mind this 4-lane road and how it turns onto the other roads, and it's got to narrow out to get. I don't assume that the residents in Bella Vista want 4 lanes going into their subdivision. So I'm just, in my mind, I don't have the engineering mind you have, but
I'm just saying, or we can have super wide lanes. We can have 16-foot wide lanes. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of a way that we can help stop and maybe it starts right there. Maybe it's not 4 lanes up to Bella Vista, but from that, whatever that road is.
Yeah, it narrows down to a 50-foot residential as soon as you go through the intersection.
So go 4 lanes from there out.
But making it a 4-lane road, making it a 4-lane road is going to not going to do anything for your speeds, right? People are going to look at it like a
I don't think
4-lane
that matters.
raceway.
It's going to be what it's going to be. If you
put cars on both sides and people slow down, I promise you. But it's unintended consequences, right? No matter what you do to it. It won't be cars parked on the side, but if it's 4 lanes, people will feel like it's a 4-lane road and they'll drive like it.
So coming to that intersection, it would create a problem because we would have to drop a lane before we get to that intersection.
Couldn't
or
we
make
just-
them a right-hand turn.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking,
only
right
lane,
hands.
But
Oh no, it's just an idea. I'm just trying to think of ideas to solve a potential problem.
the width of the road, there's plenty of room for cars to park on both sides. That would leave approximately 32 feet of asphalt.
You'd
still open on that road.
Well, you'd have, if you say you did a 3-lane road at 12-foot lanes, you're at 36.
Yeah, but a car parking on the side's not a 12-foot lane. So basic cars, you're about an 8 foot from the curb.
Yeah, but there's only 40
So
feet.
you're 16 feet outside of that 40 feet of asphalt. So there is plenty of room on a 60. We have parking on roads on 50 foot, and we still get the traffic passing by, and a 60 foot, we're at 10 feet wider than the 50 foot.
I guess all I'm saying is the 3 lanes is 36 feet. That only leaves 4 feet of asphalt, and if you include the
But
curb,
it's not a 3-lane road. There's not a.
you
center
would stripe
turn
it as
lane.
a 2.
Yeah, it wouldn't justify a center turn lane on that. It really doesn't really even justify being a 60 foot with the density that's there. But it got put in as a 60.
That would leave room for a bike lane, right?
But it also can be signed no parking. If you don't want parking on that road, it can be signed that way.
This might be a little off the wall, but since we're talking 4 lanes, what about a landscape medium? At this point, it would be tough. It's a city road, but a median would calm traffic and potentially prohibit on-street parking. It would also make for a nice approach into those neighborhoods.
Possibility.
And very expensive.
Who would
I'm
pay
sure.
for it?
Who's paying for it? Who's maintaining it?
I've known you long enough, Mike. I see the wheels turning.
Mike said he would pay for it and maintain it personally, right? No.
I think the point, though, is that we recognize that already we're seeing traffic on Bella Vista that's parking there, and we've seen other areas with overflow parking onto our streets, and then we filled a lot of those calls and a lot of those complaints. So we're just sensitive about parking. Drew or council or staff, there's some other things that were brought forward. The RV parking was a question, and the densities.
Clarification of density.
The clarification of density might be a good one, and then circle back to more parking.
Can we, and also just so the applicant can think about it, is the grass real or fake in this area? He can answer it when he comes back up.
All right, Drew, if you wouldn't mind speaking specifically to, as Mr. Romney had asked, the density is medium high, which at face value allows for 12 dwelling units per acre. And of course, you've explained this is negotiated or custom zoning. Can you just kind of speak to how we've got the increased units there?
Well, as stated, we started with what the general plan. That's why we know already at 200, I'm at 2.52 dwelling units per acre above it. So it comes in at 14.5. You know, my limit is 12. And so for that, again, he pointed out that the PUD does allow for increase. You know, I think the report kind of went to those things. They're asking because of the increase in the residential. Now, again, he was right. The other ones do have, as I stated, is, you know, the other 3 options you have, say for X, you get Y. And it's usually if you do this, you get 1 extra dwelling unit per acre for doing that. But on the recreational one, it just says it'll be considered as a case-by-case basis. So if you feel you're getting a whopper of great amenity, you can, as far as I'm concerned, you could, you know, I wouldn't encourage you to do that, but that would allow the council to pick whatever extra density
so Drew,
they would like to do.
Just to be clear, so this is my understanding of the ordinance, and I've gone through this many times, is that, so it was right. The general plan states that we can have up to 12 units per acre. 12 units per acre times the acreage is 165 units.
Correct.
Then we have the option of adding 1 unit per acre on top of that for your conditions, right? Isn't that what you just said?
For the different options.
So that takes you to 179, but doesn't it give also that the council has a preview to go an additional 25% above, up to 25% of the density allowed?
I think, yeah, for your maximum, you don't want to go above that. So in this case, at 12, that would give you up to 3 dwelling units per acre on 25% of that 12.
Of the 165.
It's all relevant, right? I mean, it's of the 65, so you could add 40.
Well, I'm just saying that if
41,
so
right?
if you look at it, you've got your 165 units. and you can go up to 125 per the ordinance, or up to 25% increase per the ordinance, is 41. So you're 41 plus 165, you're at 206.
206. And that's based on if you want to accept, again, if someone could bring you a really weak design and say, oh, I want to get this. And you're going, well, that's not giving me a lot. Like the tree line street one, they could say, well, we're going to put a tree on each side of the road for 100 feet. That's what they're proposing. I'm not saying this one is, but I'm just pointing out of what you could say, no, we're not going to give you the credit on that because you're giving me two trees over 100-foot gap. That's, or someone comes and lines them up, and puts them every 5 feet, which you wouldn't do, but I'm just, gives you a really lush type of a thing. You could say, wow, that's great. You've gone above and beyond what we'd expect. That's why I say the council can go up, and I like that you pointed that out, Councilman Coates, is that you can go up to 25%, not a max of. And that's why I'm kind of hitting that they're just putting on that they have all the extra amenities, almost double of what, we're not saying you need to give them, but that along with, they are hitting the streets that they are on with a good plethora of trees. You can give them some credit for that, I think. I think, again, this is things the council can weigh out as they look at PUDs. That's what they're kind of made for. You can also look at around the periphery, they're not doing what most of them do. That's why I say they left some open areas there. They give you an open corner. You can use that to help justify your increase in densities. Now, if you feel they've given you enough to give them 2.5, that's really what the question is. It's not about the one, it is in essence about the 165, but the point on here is 2.5 is what they're asking for. Have they done enough in your eyes as a council to give them 2.5 dwelling units per acre above the general plan stated 12 max for the project? Trying to keep it simple instead of saying, I'm going to give you 75 and 20. They're saying we've done you some tree lined street area on the streets that we can. We're also giving you some periphery open areas where we can. And we've done you a plethora of extra amenity area. Is that enough for the council to say we feel good about giving you 2.5, or you say no, it's only good to me for two extra dwelling units per acre, or 1.75 or 2.25? That's all in the council's discretion in PUD. If that helps, I'm just trying to keep it more on a simple plane. Do you feel the project meets a 2.5 extra per acre, or is it only your mind valued?
I just wanted to
at
clarify that it is in the code and the ordinance.
I appreciate that because a lot of people don't look at the 25%, but we wanted to put a max because someone could come and hit point A, B, C, and then throw you a outrageous amenity package, and you think, wow, this is worth 10 dwelling units per, but no, the code says nobody can really max out more than 25% of whatever based on the acreage or the general plan density. And I appreciate you pointing that out. So you could go up to 206 if you feel they've given you a package worth that much.
Additional responses to questions, additional comments, questions, council, additional discussion?
Somebody had a question about the RV parking, if it had anything to do with the other development. I think this is just
whether it did or didn't, you don't need to worry. You guys can decide if you want it to or you don't. That's, again, at your discretion on that, to just keep it with this development. So, that was the previous one. It's expired. So and I'm not trying to disregard it, but you can do what you feel as a council you want to do on that particular thing.
So I'll just kind of, let everybody know where I'm at on this. I wasn't comfortable when this, property owner came in before with that quite high density, the 240 units. It just, it was just too much. I'm comfortable with the 200. I think it's a very nice project. I think it falls within our ordinances. The 200 does. I really appreciate the way the property owner, it seems like they had, the surrounding landowners in mind as they designed this project. I like how, as you come down Bella Vista, the first thing you see is the nice landscaped corner and not a big building corner. I'm a little bit concerned about parking. I think we're all always concerned about parking on projects like this, but it seems like the developers have met the, requirements, although, sometimes I think our requirements we may need to look at those. So I like the project. I'm in favor of it. That's where I'm at. So.
Mayor, would it be appropriate to ask the developer just one more question?
Please, and I want to give you the opportunity to field questions, and would also be happy for you to field what concessions or solutions you might have to parking as well. But let's go with Councilman Ivy's question first.
So you're going to have an on-site HOA board or
Property management.
property managed there. Has there ever been considered that part of that HOA responsibility would be to manage parking and to have parking numbers or identifiers that if someone does have a garage full of stuff and they can't park in there, that pushes them to the street or in other parking, which creates the problem? I would be interested to hear what your plan would be, how the HOA could help assist in that, because the city doesn't want to get into having to enforce.
Yep.
That's not what we do. It's just not a good idea. So I don't want to pass anything that's going to require the city to have to spend time or consideration that, to monitor something that I just don't feel like we should be.
Absolutely. Property management could, we can assign parking spaces and write up in agreements that if they're mistreated or misused, then there could be a fine attached.
You can do that, but would you if that were a condition?
Property management could definitely initiate that.
I think the general concern is parking on Bella Vista, and we've seen from experience that what sometimes on paper looks adequate is inadequate. So what other solutions would you have to keep parking off of Bella Vista, off of Cactus, and really just to accommodate?
So I think, going back to some of the discussion, I think 2 lanes is, a 4-lane road seems busy and fast. But I think if you had even a right turn lane as that second lane, so you have a right-hand turn lane that comes off of Desert Cactus, that's going to take you half the distance of that line as kind of an approach lane. You're going to be past this property before it combines into one. And then shortly after, you can add the 4th lane back as a right turn lane going off onto Telegraph. So you essentially have the 4-lane road. You're just using approach lanes, and decel lanes. So it's not a 4-lane full traffic. You just have a turn lane and a decel lane. So I think if it's something that the city's absolutely doesn't want to have happen, then I think posting it and, we're going to have fencing that surrounds this property. We're required to separate ourselves from, the property behind. We're going to have, CMU walls that visibly block the view between the properties, but then we're going to have alternating CMU and still fencing along there. So our residents are already fairly separated. If you parked on Bella Vista, you got a long walk to get into the community.
So there will be fencing, either a solid fence, one-way block, or wrought iron all the way along Bella Vista.
Correct. It'd be fenced on all 3 sides with the exception of Desert Cactus.
So the entrances would just be on the south. Is that what you just said?
Correct.
Those 3?
Yep.
And everything else would be enclosed.
Correct.
So you heard the concern from Mrs. Keefe about prior developments on this master plan.
Yes.
Having been talked about additional RV parking in this area. Now we're kind of coming to a point where we're concerned about adequate parking for here. And so if you could speak to
So
overflow RV parking here and adequate parking.
Yes, and I can't speak to previous agreements, but I do understand that the initial proposal previously with the prior developer was that if, what is it? I don't want to say Desert Flower. Desert Flower was as a vacation rental option. And with the vacation rental option, they needed to have RV parking as an attachment to that. That proposal was denied, so the RV parking would not be attached to that proposal. That went away, that agreement went away when the...
So is that something you want to entertain, is to allow for those people to the west and south that were originally a part of?
We would
it's not your
contemplate,
deal.
we'd contemplate making it available to the community if it's better for the community. Just your comment making this.
My
community
concern is
centered
then it's a
only.
commercial business.
Right.
So now we're inviting anyone to come park their boats and everything in here, and you've provided enough parking in my view, as long as you don't do as much RV.
Yeah.
So this was my thought.
That's kind of where we're leading you.
So I'll just be
You're
straightforward.
following us.
I'll follow.
I follow where I'm going, and I'm just going to be straightforward with you. Drew, will you zoom in for me? The top corner where it says 2 stalls, and the top right corner.
You and I are thinking the same on this, I think.
Okay, so it's just north of your garages. Make that an access into the back, and then split that RV down the middle between the garages and make that additional parking for your residents, and the remainder you could use as your RV rental space area. So that way there's additional there, but I'm also open to having it being the other Desert Flower developments can utilize this for their RV parking as a paid, because I know they've been split up, but they're kind of together.
Yeah.
But that would have to be the condition that's only them as a group could utilize this RV parking.
Is it necessary for those to be separated? I mean, if at one point they needed more stalls or the other community needs more stalls, could they not intermingle in the space?
I am fine with that, but you have a gate here saying that they're blocking them. So what I don't want is I don't want the residents not to be able to get to there. And then how do you delineate? I mean, I don't know, maybe you stripe them and say these are reserved. We could get rid of the gate and I would be comfortable. But you can't ever block this off for the residents to be able to utilize these spaces. Like, we have to have a certain amount stay open to the residents, and then if you want to identify which ones are private, but we need to determine that tonight, which you agree to or not. So that we're saying I don't know how many are in here, I couldn't remember.
And as you're looking at that, I want to go back to Councilman Ivy's point too, is I think it makes a lot of sense to determine, what allocated parking per unit, right? So that you can identify if you rent here, you're allocated X and Y or X parking stalls. I think to me, that's important so that we don't have that overflow.
Correct. And if we had if we were to assign parking to a space, it shows right now that we currently have enough parking. I understand the argument and the conversation of people using garage space for other than parking, but that can't be controlled in a single family home. I mean, that's something it's their property and decision to do with what they do.
And the difference though is this is going to be your property and your decision, as the owner, so you can control the parking.
Yes.
And if it's not controlled, the risk or the concern from the city is that it overflows to us, and then I get calls, and then I have to call the police chief, and then we're taking time checking on parking on the side of the street when they need to be, doing more important police work.
So is it fair to say that we can agree on what that quantity of stalls is? We would open those stalls up into the public common area and then separate with key card access the rental. Because if you do have a boat or whatever it is you're storing in there, you want to know that that's safely kept behind gate.
Yeah, so
we can
that
open up.
That was my suggestion, is right where it says RV storage.
Mhm.
Maybe you have your gate across there, and you still have your bottom to the southeast that has the locked gate, because I get that portion,
Yeah.
but then open up the stuff to the north as to
Yes.
common. So that's
We can, and that works. We can do that. We would have, we can rework the site. It's just, like you said, Mayor, is coming to an agreement of what that stall count is so that we know what is available for rent.
Well, and owning some gated overflow parking gives you flexibility to it, that if a tenant exceeds that, there's an option for them to rent a stall rather than to, keep playing Move My Car off the side of Bella Vista every other day.
Correct.
Kind of thing.
Yep. And right now, we've designed the parking count based on the code requirement. So I don't know what
We always push for higher.
I don't know what additional stalls we're talking about tonight. So we just have to agree on what that number is to come to an agreement. But as far as separating that, we're more than happy to do that. We want to make sure the parking requirement is met within the community. The remainder would be rental, and it's open to any of the neighboring communities.
The only other thing I kind of think is if you ended up opening up that top, it's kind of distant from the other.
It is.
And I could see some just cars parking there for good and not ever being moved. And I guess that's kind of your
Yeah.
policing, but
And management can take care of that. I think another thing, yeah, we can rework that portion of the site. We can, push the garages. We can open that area up to the remainder of the community so that it looks more like open parking like the rest of the community. One thing that's not shown on here is the parking requirement to have 50% covered. Just for clutter of the site plan, we don't show that, but 50% of these are going to have covered canopies throughout the parking. So your need to.
So real quick, I know we have soil conditions. Is this fake grass, real grass?
So we contemplate real grass mostly for temperature. You have fake grass, gets extremely hot, and it's unusable. We have looked at the new requirements. We're way below what is being asked for water usage in landscaping. Right now it's, previously talked about, we have designated tree emblems, but those have not been nailed down to what's the best in the area, what city prefers. Those things can all be altered, but count is there. But grass-wise, we're using a real grass in areas that are functional. If it's we're not using grass anywhere that it's a decorative piece. We're going to have functioning water usage only.
I guess I'm stating that I'm sure you'll follow your geotech because there is the blue clay in there. And I just want to
Absolutely.
make sure that we don't have any future issues because we're not mitigating that clay where we do put real grass.
Yeah, we will. It's a lot of excavation.
What's the depth on the clay there? Do you know?
We have a 17-foot over-X required.
17.
Councilman Martinson, Councilmember Casperson, any thoughts? Anything else to address?
I guess I will say if Drew could, I don't want you to bring it up, but if we remember the initial proposal on this piece of property was 4-story apartment complexes because they just had, it was straight kind of zoning requirement and they got a design architect involved and a design engineer involved. And this is, as Councilman Henderson said, this is a much better project than what was initially proposed, however many years ago that was.
And they were just rows of apartments right, next to each other, just packing. They put all their density here because they took the whole density over the whole project, counting, the one off to the west, south, and they stuffed most of it in this area. So, but it didn't fly.
So I'll tell you where I'm leaning, and I'm not trying to hold the project up. I'm leaning that I would like to table this and rework this RV, show us how we can stripe that Bella Vista to get it to work. And you'll have to work with our public works to make sure, and Mike's going to address that right now, what his thoughts are. I want to move it forward, but I just think on these PUDs, we got to get exactly what we need before we move forward on them. But that's where I'm landing, and Manager Red will tell me something else. But we'll let Mike speak. We won't let Jeremy speak, but can we let Mike speak?
We'll let Mike speak into the mic. Go ahead.
So I have an option for Bella Vista. I would like to take credit for it, but I got a staff member that doesn't have a life and is watching this. So he sent me a text. And he's got.
Can we keep Lester out of this, please? No, I'm teasing.
It was Andy.
Okay.
So we can stripe that road as a 3-lane road with bike lanes. Very simple.
Because he goes to the Active Transportation Committee meeting every week with Councilmember Casperson, or every month.
Very simple, very easy, takes care of the parking.
And those are 6-foot bike lanes?
I don't know what.
We're going to do 3 lanes with.
3 12-foot lanes.
So that only leaves.
It's 36
So
feet.
what we'll want to do is a smaller middle lane with 12-foot lanes and then bike lanes.
Well, the middle lane would want to leave the same.
You don't want one?
We would go to maybe 11-foot lanes. We can use the gutter pans for part of the bike lanes.
Oh, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, but if we do a 4-foot, it leaves plenty of room for a bike lane.
Okay.
We can definitely do that. Very simple way of doing it. And that would take care of your parking issue.
Except they'll park there and then
Without expense.
on my bike. Thank you, Mike. That's a good suggestion. Are you amenable to getting it striped all the way from what is that, desert, I keep forgetting that name.
Desert cactus.
Desert cactus to
cactus.
Telegraph. It's a cheap remedy.
Just paint. He's asking you. Will you
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm saying you're paying for it, I guess, to help mitigate.
If we need to pay for it, we're on it.
Josh, would you tell us kind of what your understanding is and what your willingness would be on the parking? Obviously, that's been something we've kind of gone in circles around.
Yes. I'm honestly kind of unclear. So
I think I'd like you to tell the council for them to consider what you might be willing to do there.
So currently we have met the city code, so I don't know what's being asked. So once we reach the code,
which is what we typically do on parking.
So, I mean, how much more are we talking?
I counted 24 from the RV north, where that says RV storage north.
Mhm.
I counted 24 stalls there. I might have been off. And that was me losing those 3. So we'll lose 3 stalls to get the access through there. If you fenced it can you draw that again, Drew?
It's 25 down on this side.
So the other thing about these stalls is these stalls are way longer than what a vehicle needs.
And I would say if
so we can rework this and probably get more
you can
stalls.
pull them back. You don't need, if they are not, I would say you could pull them back to standard stalls on the area that we're requiring to be part of the apartments.
And I have a question with the comment is, as a PUD, is there room to move forward and then through the process, as we go forward with the design, we can work through this parking together?
There's nothing, this is where we have to make those decisions because it's all combined.
Yeah.
What if we did something like we approve it with the condition of you add X number of stalls available to the general tenants?
So,
and you guys could work that out
any way you want
with your architect. Yeah, I mean, if that's kind of where we're going, it sounds like that's what we want to do. But instead of trying to be the architect up here, I'd rather say something like, we're going to approve this with the condition that you're going to add 25 more stalls or 30 more stalls or something like that. That way they can go be done with it and figure it out with staff.
I like that, Councilman
And the
Henderson.
other reminder is there's 26 stalls at the front door of those townhomes. So there's 26 stalls on the street that are going to be used, which is freeing up 26 stalls in the community.
Just to help you, Josh and council, I kind of counted down. So at the first yellow line, if you just, move that to be the gated area for your RV, that's adding 20 overall. You go to my second yellow line, that's adding 30. So 20, and I put it at 20 because that's at 200 units, that's, 1/20th. I can't, we get that. So, and then the 30 would be 1.5 extra per on that, if that makes sense. So I'm just giving you some places, some, pictures of where that would be for you and for the council. It's 20 and 30 at those yellow lines extra. It still leaves you that much more in your, whatever everybody decides. This could still be the gated storage below those yellow lines.
So I'd like to see these guys roll out of here tonight with an approval. And if that means we just say you need to add this X number of stalls and the staff can oversee that, then I think that would be fine.
I can see the applicant's point, they've met the standard, but the thing that you have to understand is that we've approved projects and then come to find out dreadfully that it wasn't enough. So, you want a number, we've bounced around 20, 30, 25. I personally would be okay with the 20 and just, you figure it out and work it out, but I don't want to make you come back if we can not do that. I know that you're anxious to get going. I feel like the thing that I really appreciate about your development is that you've reached out to the property owners up on Bella Vista and the others around and have tried to bring them into the conversation. And that's, as a community, that's what we need to do, is reach across those lines. So that's where I'm at, council, but that's just me.
I feel like we have these conversations every time for the parking, and I'm just wondering if there's a way to avoid the frustration that could, that we're having to discuss this every time, where they meet the requirement, and then, we're always having these conversations, and so I'm just wondering, Council Thad Segmiller, what do you think shall be done?
So these are standards that are in your zoning code. They're different on different zone designations. And so this is a fairly big project of ordinance amendment, but we've been on that trend. Let's keep going.
Good point. Good response, Manager.
I just want to I don't want to belabor the point at all, but I don't want to be afraid of allowing some street parking either for traffic calming. And I get that on this project, that's a 60-foot wide road. So if we're not going to allow parking on those roads, we shouldn't build them that wide. And it's just a comment. I get that up until this point, it's been a big wide road with no parking and nobody on it, but just a comment. It's very expensive to maintain a 60-foot wide road if we don't actually need a 60-foot wide road. And the point of that is to park on it. So anyway, just because you hadn't heard enough from me tonight, so I want to make that comment.
And we did mention after last meeting to Manager Red that we need to relook at our parking code. So, and that's on his list.
I've got a note. We'll look at it. Parking is sort of like money, right? You can never have enough. So we'll look at it and see what looks like more, but
Good points.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Did you have?
I think, just to I guess echo it all, we're happy to do it. Let's call it 20 and give our architect an opportunity to take a look at it. Because I think the way it's drawn, it's made for the width and size of an RV. So turnaround lanes, the distance that those parking stalls are apart, that's all really made for trailer parking, RV parking. So if they can rework that area, fit in an additional 20 stalls to what the current count is, we're more than happy to do that.
I'm good with 20. Yep, I'm good with 20. And so we still haven't addressed, and I'd like to hear from the applicant on who you're renting these out to. Are you open to?
Absolutely. We're open to the community if the community is established as, let's call it 1 mile every direction.
Well,
if
I don't
it's
know.
Bella Vista,
I'm more of identifying the subdivisions that were originally a part of because it's all the same. I understand it's the same developer who's selling it to you guys.
Yep.
And I think we just need to be specific on its Desert Flower to the west and the subdivisions to the south. I don't know what their names are right now. But that would be my condition, is that, yes, I would like to open it up to them because it gives them an opportunity to go find a space for their boat.
For the RV parking.
For the RV. So, and I know we split these up, but they've been all together in my mind, and I keep them in my mind together. So,
yeah.
I just don't know how we do that legally in a condition. So I need some help with wording on that.
I think we just need wording that the applicant can make sure is understood and able to apply.
And that's clear.
And so the applicant himself would be responsible to abide by that condition.
How does the community become aware?
Well, the problem we have, I just don't want it to become, you have an RV park to the north, right? That's open to anybody, but this isn't really set up for a commercial zone, is how I'm looking at it. It's an apartment complex, and you had some extra space, and I'm glad you can, and I don't want to take revenue away from you on the RV if it makes sense, but I want it to be for the residents in the current area, not
open to the general public.
Open to a guy who lives in Ivans, says, oh, it's closer to the lake, I'm going to go park my boat here, and then it just adds additional traffic to the area and to the rest. That's my concern.
It's a kind of a community, and especially with the history, as Councilmember Martinson mentioned, this initially was one collective project, and there's been a history, with this collectively. I don't know how you do that other than, does Wasatch give us their word on that?
Right, and we would do that. If there's something further we can discuss, and if it comes up later on that there's an agreement that you guys think is more necessary, we're open to this community only.
I think we just state these subdivisions, and that third one yet to be named, we'll throw that in on there. You'll be aware of that. And then your property management people just make sure they show where they live, and we'll just have.
So he had a good point. What if we said within a half a mile? Because what if there's someone in Bella Vista that wants to rent? and park.
Well, that's up, if the council wants to do, I was just pulling up these because we talked about this is all the same kind of developer. You want to just keep it to them. Or you could say, if you want to offer it to Bella Vista, I'm sure one or two of them may take advantage of that. That might not be a bad idea to help.
And here's my thinking for the council is that it's all, your traffic's already there within a half mile, so it's not going to affect it.
Yeah, and we feel like the RV is a benefit just because then you don't have stuff filling up driveways and roadways, and it's getting it all into a collected space. So it's better for the general community in that area if it's kept to that area. We can go with the city utility bill or whatever it needs to be to verify the location they're bringing it from.
All right.
I just
I'm
want to
feeling
say,
the time. Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember. Then I'm going to think we're getting close to a motion.
Stipulate because there's already storage over there already that's available. So I just don't think it's hard to. I don't know. I just feel like we shouldn't stipulate who can and cannot, or just leave it for the residents rather than say, oh, the Bella Vista and these and this they can in this community. Just say either have it be for the residents who live on this property, or it's open to anyone because there's already storage units available close by as well. That's my opinion about it.
RV storage right there.
For residents on site. Okay, further discussion and or motion? I think we're getting close. Be happy to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we, let me just find it here. I'd like to make a motion that we approve an ordinance for zone change request Z-22-11. Request to approve the design and use of an already zone plan unit development residential parcel of 13.77 acres located at approximately the northeast corner of Bella Vista Drive and Desert Cactus Drive, and with the condition that they add 20 more parking spaces. That's it.
About the striping.
Oh, and the road striping.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Are we addressing where they're renting these two or no?
So we have a motion and a second. Council, do I have to more discussion that or do I have to allow a vote now?
I would allow a vote. I think we've covered all the legal issues, and as long as
The council has so we have a motion and a second on the table. Do we have to have a vote before there's additional conversation?
If you want to be real tight to the rules, yes.
I'd rather let Councilman Coates say what he wants to say before we vote.
Just make that clear that we're going to allow some more discussion before
I'll allow. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Councilman Coates was going to make a comment.
I just asked for clarification from Councilman Henderson about the RV being.
I don't want to make any motion about the RV thing.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. This is an ordinance, so we'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Martinson.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously, and we look forward to a really nice project there. We look forward to Wasatch Builders being a part of our community. Thanks, Josh, and thanks for being patient with what's been a long road. So it's been a bit of a night. We've been going for 2.5 hours. I'm going to ask that we have a 5-minute break. We'll resume here at 8:35.
Let's go out and take pictures. Let's go.
All right. If you just take your seats, we'll get started here. Okay, well, we'll restart our meeting. Moving along with item 8B, as I said at the start of the meeting, I'll ask at my request that we table this item to July 13th, and I will add a work session on June 22nd. I'll call for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we table item 8B till July 13th.
We have a motion by Coates.
Second.
Second by Martinson. We'll do roll call vote. Henderson.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
That is tabled. We'll move on to item 8C. This is public hearing and consideration to approve EV-22-03, an ordinance vacating, abandoning a public easement located in the Views at Coral Canyon subdivision at approximately 174 Black Canyon Avenue. We'll hear from our city planner, Eldon Gibb, on this item.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The applicant is requesting to vacate the public utility easement located along the southern portion of the parcel, which you can view in your packets. The request is being done in conjunction with a lot line adjustment where the applicant purchased or is going to be purchasing 25 feet of the adjoining lot from the HOA. Currently, this public utility easement is not being used, and the city does not plan to use it in the future. Staff recommends that the city council approve the vacation of this public utility easement.
Great. Any questions for staff or the applicant before I open the public hearing? At this time, I'll open the public hearing on item 8C. Seeing no one come forward, I will close the public hearing. Would the applicant like to come forward and say anything? Good choice. Thanks for.
Is this going to be used for RV space rental? No, I'm just kidding.
You're our favorite applicant of the night, Keldon or Kendall. I'll call for a motion on item 8C.
I'll make a motion to approve EV-22-03, an ordinance vacating, abandoning a public easement located in the Views at Coral Canyon subdivision at approximately 174 Black Canyon Avenue.
I have a motion by Councilmember Casperson.
Second.
I have a second by Councilmember Martinson. Roll call vote. Coates.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
That is approved unanimously. Enjoy the rest of your night. We'll move along to item 8D. This is public hearing and consideration to approve EV-22-04, an ordinance vacating, abandoning a public easement located in Brio subdivision at approximately 1238 North Via del Sol. The applicant is Cole West. Our presenter is city planner Eldon Gibb.
The applicant is requesting to vacate the public utility easement located along the boundary line of lots 242 and 288 of the Brio Phase 2B and 2C subdivision. The request is being done in conjunction with a lot line. Currently, this public utility easement is not being used, and the city does not plan to use this easement in the future. Staff recommends that City Council approve this vacation request.
Any questions for staff? Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Would anyone like to come forward and speak to item 8D? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And would the applicant like to say anything? You get the same kudos. Thanks for being a trooper. I'll call for a motion on this item.
Mayor, I can make a motion to approve EV-22-04, which is an ordinance vacating and abandoning a public easement located in Brio subdivision at approximately 1238 North Via del Sol.
Have a motion by Councilmember Ivy.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Coates. Roll call vote. Ivy.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
I threw you off. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get out of order there. Item 8E, the presenter has asked to table that to June 22nd. I'll call for motion to table this.
Make a motion that we table item 8E till June 22nd.
To June 22nd, yes. Motion by Councilman Coates.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Casperson. Roll call vote. Casperson.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
That is tabled to June 22nd. We'll move on to item number 9, ordinances. 9A is a continuation to approve an ordinance amending 6-6-1, 2, and 4 of Washington City Code, overnight residential use of yards. City Attorney Thad Segmiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll pull this up briefly for the meeting. Okay, so this is just more work on our ordinance update and just kind of modernization project. The fun part of this is we're touching just about every chapter of the code. We're working in kind of some of the dark corners that haven't been worked in. And a lot of times that just means we're updating definitions, we're integrating new terms from state law. This is not an update, although it does come as an amendment because we had an existing ordinance that regulated camping in commercial areas. This is to address the on-site residential side yard use. Since our last meeting and discussion, the two changes that have occurred is I've added section D here. I decided this was probably the best way to try and encompass all of the feedback. And this section D just reads, there shall be an exception to this regulation for any residential lot owner that makes temporary camp or camping use on or within the lot owner's private property in the following conditions. And you'll see the condition 1, that it's zoned residential, 2, that it doesn't exceed 4 nights, 3, that it doesn't include any rental, short-term rental, leasing, or commercial elements, and 4, that it doesn't violate other state laws. So we tried to give kind of a 4-day window there. We thought that would encompass all of the concerns as far as, family use, just the type of permitted use that we already acknowledge and accept. The other change is in the 664, we changed a violation to become an infraction, not a misdemeanor. The second sentence mentions a Class C misdemeanor. That would be for a violation in the commercial zone. That's a standard that already existed before this amendment. I can't say that staff is robustly in favor or robustly against. Staff understands that there are concerns and there's reports and issues that this might address. We also recognize that housing on side yards is a solution for many, many people in our city. And that solution would be in peril if this gets passed. Any questions further on this draft?
Council, questions for our attorney?
I don't have any questions for that. I appreciate his hard work. I think I'm ready to make a motion. I'll just be straightforward as I don't think we need this. We are covered under all the nuisances areas and other ordinances we have. So my motion will be to deny this and not produce this update.
Is that a motion, or are you saying you're going to make a motion?
Well, if you're ready for one.
Do we have a public hearing?
This isn't a public
No?
hearing,
Okay.
but I would like, if there's any input from the council, I'm happy to entertain a motion, but I'd like council to be able to chime in on this.
I oppose it also for some of the reasons that he stated.
Any thoughts? Sounds like we're ready for a motion.
So I'll make a motion that item ordinance amending 6-6-1, 2, and 4 of the Washington City Code of overnight residential use of yards, that we deny this ordinance for, usually we want a reason, right?
You don't need a reason on an ordinance. It's a
All right,
legislative
I'll just deny
function.
this ordinance,
Yeah.
but I appreciate the hard work from the staff, and I think we can cover these problems in other ordinances that we currently have.
Okay, we have a motion by Coates, have a second by Casperson. Roll call vote. Casperson.
Aye.
Ivy.
Nay.
Coates.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Okay, the ordinance is denied. 4-1. Move on to item 9B. This is consideration to approve an ordinance amending 5-2E-1, 3, 4, 5, and 6, Washington City Code, Public Safety, Offenses, Nuisances, and Traffic.
Okay, this is another update. This one came from our prior discussion. It really started with a question of why does current city code disallow use of motorized scooters on trails? In the process of clarifying that, became clear that our code needed some modernization as to some of the electric vehicles that are now used out there. State law has kept up on that and defined them all. And so we've added in here definitions of those type of vehicles. And then you'll see in each section, previously each section had about a page worth of code that at the time it was adopted reflected state law, but no longer did. So I just wrote each one to say, this will be governed by state law sections blank. So that as state law changes as to motorized scooters and go-karts and all the other different things, our ordinance will just track that. And so that's consistent throughout the rest of it. Each category is then amended just to track state law.
You were going to put under the go-karts the Seg-Miller rule in parentheses.
Seg-Millers are not good at motorized vehicles. So give us a shovel and we're pretty impressive. Give us a cart with a motor.
You said it was because of you as a kid is why you had these rules. So.
I can vouch for that.
Yeah.
All right, council, you've heard our city attorney. Is there any discussion or are we ready for a motion on this one? Councilmember Casperson, you want to take a stab?
Sure. I will make a motion to approve an ordinance amending 5-2E-1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 Washington City Code, Public Safety, Offenses, Nuisances, and Traffic.
I have a motion by Casperson.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Second by Ivy. Roll call vote. Ivy.
Aye.
Coates.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
The ordinance is amended. Moving on to item 9C. This is consideration to approve an ordinance amending Title 6-51, parentheses P, 1 parentheses R, and 1 parentheses U, Washington City Code, Public Parks.
Number 3 of the project today. This one came about from a discussion about why we disallowed roller skating on trails. And then there was also some discussion about firearms and how that applied. And so we made an amendment to that. You'll see here on skating, 6-5-1-P, we still disallow it within parks, but we have that second sentence that makes it clear that city trails are exempted from prohibition of that. So you can skate, rollerblade, skateboard. What else is there, Councilwoman Casperson, to do?
This is something that Jeremy was
Scooter
wanting to do,
skates.
rollerblade. And
What are the scooters with rollerblade wheels? Heelys, razors, all of those are allowed on our current trails.
Razors,
or they will be if the council passes this. Razors.
Did he say razors?
Big razors.
Sweet.
Like a Segway.
Yeah, Seg-Millers
Nine
don't know.
by.
I saw Shaw smiled back there like, sweet, we're rolling.
Manager in rollerblades.
That's right.
One wheel.
The one wheel.
Yeah. There was a kid that had one of those at a conference last week, and he wrecked into all the chairs.
That sounds like it's good policy then.
Swimming came up because, again, this was collaborative. We ran it past parks, and we recognized that we had an ordinance in the same section of code that disallowed swimming in any parks. But since it had been passed, we had adopted the boilers, and we allow swimming in the boilers without a lifeguard. So this is there just to update city code to reflect what we allowed at boilers a few years ago.
Do we put no swimming on the Sullivan Soccer Park? We signed that, don't we?
There is no sign of, well, I think there was a sign, but it ended up in the same place as the scooters. about mid pool, but we'll look into that because we should have a no swimming sign there. That should be something we maintain regularly.
I wouldn't swim in it, but
it's not approved for swimming. Yeah, it's not approved for swimming, and so I'll follow up to make sure we review signage on that. This third one here, weapons. We'd always had a section in the parks rule about weapons. We wanted to write this to reflect the modern state laws. And so in this case, we're essentially just regulating how a weapon or a firearm would be used within the park, and we're not commenting on anything else. So in this case, you're not allowed to discharge, brandish, or threaten. Otherwise, we're not going to regulate weapons in parks.
Appreciate your thoroughness on this, Thad, and I know the council has read through each of these drafts. Is there any comments, questions, suggestions on this? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, really quick. Do we want to get ahead since we've got the Wills Park coming up? Do we want to already put that in?
So what we do is we have a broad prohibition, and then Wills Park will be expressly signed to allow those things.
Good catch, council member.
I just want to say I appreciate your work on this. So thank you for taking the time to do this. And
Yeah, I appreciate council members that help us get up to date. It's a project we'll have for a while, and the more feedback you contribute, the more up to date we'll get.
Fantastic. I'll be happy to entertain a motion on this item.
I will make a motion on this. And this will be this thing, right? Okay. Approve an ordinance amending Title 6-5-1 P, 1R, and 1U Washington City Code Public Parks.
I have a motion by Casperson.
Second.
Second by Coates. Roll call vote. Coates.
Aye.
Henderson.
Aye.
Martinson.
Aye.
Casperson.
Aye.
Ivy.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Let's go on to item 10, report of officers from assigned committees. I'll start with Council Member Martinson.
I don't have anything. You saw the youth council come up tonight and get sworn in, and they don't have another meeting until the 27th of August, which is their retreat.
Perfect. Thank you. Councilmember Henderson.
Just real quick, I want to give a shout out to the Planning Commission. They've been doing a great job. Very good. Also, I've had a couple of really good compliments lately about the building and planning department, how people are thinking it's running like a well-oiled machine. So if you'll, pass that on to the crew. And one of them was from a guy that never gives compliments about our city. So I thought that was pretty good. And then, the Washington Dam Road and Buena Vista Road, looking great. So appreciate your guys' work on that. So that's it.
Well said. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Coates.
Yes, so on the solid waste, we are, just give the council an update. We're looking at the improvements of the new scale house and new building out at the landfill. It's estimated about $15 million, but we're weighing with the cost. We're trying to figure that out if we can build the whole thing or not. We've also applied for some CIB funding for that. We don't know if we have that yet, but we have applied for it. We did get marked as one of the top, I guess I would say, tiers of reasons to have it. The tough thing that the landfill has is they just don't have credit either, because they don't get loans and CIB. So that's kind of like our option, is to go through CIB funding, because we've never had to apply for funds before. So it's just difficult that way. And it is a huge improvement. We are behind. That landfill needs some help, but we got to look at how much money we have in the bank to cover some of that cost versus how much we're borrowing. But the CIB bond is extremely affordable, considering where bonds just jumped. They still hold that lower in twos somewhere. So I'll keep the council informed as that goes forward, but that's what we have for that. So
I love that you're weighing your options on the scale house building. This is well said.
And I'll let you say that.
Okay.
And so on the power board, we had it last night. I haven't really been able to get my thoughts together, but we're ready for a hot summer, and rates are high, and it's unfortunate, but it's the market we're in right now. And I think Rick's doing a great job to buy us the power the best we can. He's always looking for options. So we got good staff and a good board member, and we're excited to have Dick Saunders on the team moving forward. So that's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Ivy.
I'll start with legislative policy. We have had a meeting since we met last. The big talking point was a legislative priority survey that should be filled out by city councils. I will get that out to you, but the topics they want us to consider is housing, land use, water conservation, energy technology, tax policy, permitting, licensing, transportation, general government, election, and public safety, and I'll get that out. But what's interesting about this survey is they want you to, instead of prioritizing by 1 to 10, they want you to spend $100 and how you'd spend $100 in addressing those things. So it makes it more real when you're putting money to it, even if it's $100. So they did talk about a U.S. court decision where they voted 6-3 that strict guidance does not apply as far as digital advertising on roadways. That's something that our legislature will talk a lot about. They had some bills that were waiting for that decision. And then the Commission on Housing Affordability is meeting, and that is through the Land Use Task Force. They have meetings throughout the summer and fall in preparation of next year's legislative session to be able to ascertain exactly what priorities they want to build into those bills. And then the last thing that I would mention is that there is a primary election on June 28th. The last day to register for that primary is June 17th. So if you haven't done that and you want to vote, get her done. Then with the Arts Council, they are planning an awesome event. We're not ready to tell you what it is, but it's going to be awesome. They're excited. They're a fun group. They love what they do, and they appreciate our support. So more to come on that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Casperson.
I'll just be really quick. We had the active transportation meeting today, and we talked about a lot of things, but something that I wanted to point out is the Washington City Historical Preservation Commission has gone through Washington City and designated different sites, to preserve as historical places. And something that was mentioned is, once this is done, if we can maybe designate this area as a historical district once they are finished with that. And so this is something to consider going forward, and I can bring more information to you as they finalize and go forward with this.
I love that. Is that possible that I can get a copy of that and have the recorder after the meeting?
Of course, yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Anything else?
That is all for me.
I'll give 2 quick updates on water before we hear the city manager report. So we as the Washington County Water Conservancy Board, we in response to just inflationary pressure and other issues, approved a wholesale water rate increase from $1.44 per 1,000 gallons to $1.54 per 1,000 gallons. And for secondary water, the rate went from 90 cents per 1,000 gallons to $1 per 1,000 gallons. So that'll flow through to our end users, and we'll work through that. The other thing that we're talking as a matter of policy is the prior Water Conservancy Board approved a surcharge for excessive water use. I think that's around 36,000 gallons per month. You'd have to fact check me on that, but that surcharge will generate about $1 million annually back to the district. And as a board, we want to make sure that passes through to the municipalities. So we're putting together the staff there is putting together a policy where municipalities can apply annually for those funds for municipal projects that contribute to water conservation. So the details are yet to be worked out, but we think that's promising. We think that's a move in the right direction of ways that we can take those who are using too much and help use that to offset the cost of conservation efforts we're doing.
Is there a way we can keep it so we don't give it to the district so that we can do our own projects if we have them slated? I think we need to have that as an option, is that because we've been giving the district money all these years, and we need help back to get some of these.
Yeah, so
irrigation.
that's certainly the intention, and as of last night's board meeting, the direction generally given by the board was that that money flow back to the municipalities. So that the money will flow back to municipalities, but similar to other regional projects, they'll be divvied out on a needs basis, and so there may be times when we take more than our share on a project we have, and when other communities take more than their share, but I think it'll all even out over time. So that's absolutely what's going to happen, is those surcharges are going to flow back to the cities. So Zach's working through that process, and we'll present that to the board. And I think that's everything I have that's that right now that I want to share. City manager report, item 11.
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have anything to report tonight.
Okay, and item 12 was closed session. We have no need for closed session. Item 13 is adjournment. I'll call for motion to adjourn the meeting.
What the heck? A motion to adjourn.
Motion by Ivy.
I'll second that.
Second by Ivy. All in favor?
Aye.
And we stand adjourned at 9:05 p.m. 9:03 p.m.